Good afternoon, members, and welcome back to today's Budget Full Council meeting. We are now going to move into debate, having had the motion and amendments for the revenue budget moved this morning.
Apologies, Provost, I haven't got my computer switched on yet, but I have a point of clarification to inform debate, if that would be in order.
Okay, I've also got a point of clarification from Councillor Peter Barrett. I'll come to the Leader of the Council first, and then I'll come to Councillor Barrett. Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Provost. I wanted to say that following on, as I said this morning, I look forward to listening to today's debate and taking forward proposals from across the Chamber that will benefit the people of Perth and Kinross. And I've already included several suggestions from across the Chamber in my budget, as I mentioned earlier. And having listened carefully to what's been said this morning, I'm happy to make the following adjustments to the SNP revenue budget. And I can list them all from the Liberal Democrat group, 50,000 in year one for and 50,000 in year two non-recurring for a link worker. Flood protection grants, 150,000 non-recurring in year one. Landlord initiatives, 80,000 non-recurring in year one. Bloom groups, take a pride in Perth and Kinross, 10,000 non-recurring. Bloom groups, 20,000 non-recurring. Rural employment incentive, 50,000 non-recurring in year one and 50,000 non-recurring in year two. Tracks, 20,000 in year one and 20,000 in year two. Rumbling Bridge Management Plan, 50,000 non-recurring in year one. Satellite Food Hubs, 16,000 non-recurring in year one. Maintenance of play parks, 150,000 non-recurring in year one. Ochterarder Mugga, 100,000 non-recurring in year one. A&A Connected, 15,000 non-recurring in year one and year two. Visitor Rangers, 50,000 non-recurring year one. Toxic Masculinity, 40,000 in year one and 50,000 in year two non-recurring. From the independent group, Creative CREEF, brackets Experience CREEF, an additional 15,000 non-recurring in years two and year three. And from the Conservative group, War Memorials, 50,000 recurring. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Point of clarification, Councillor Peter Barrett.
Thanks for that, Provost, and thanks to the Leader of the Council for those concessions, which I think vastly improve the original motion before us. My point of clarification was with reference to comments made by the Leader of the Council when he was proposing his budget motion, when he referred to an announcement by Mr Mackey of 100 civil servants moving into Puller House. And can he clarify, is this the 100 or over and above the civil servants based in Broxden, who we've been trying to get to move into Puller House for the past 18 months, or is this an additional 100 civil servants, in which case it's a case of new money as opposed to snail's pace progress by Mr Mackey on the one public estate?
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Leader of the Council.
Yeah, just to confirm, it is the same people that we're talking about, and it's moving into the city centre, and it's increasing footfall in the city centre.
Thank you. Point of clarification, Councillor John Duff.
In a second, I think what I've asked for has just come in front of me. It's fine. I just wanted the additions to the budget circulated with the total additional spend. Thank you. I've got it now.
Thank you. Yes. Point of clarification, Bailey Ahern.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I just wanted to check from what the leaders just said there. He talked about £50,000 a year for the war memorials. We had it for year 1, 2 and 3, but he said recurring, which means it goes beyond the 3 years. Can I just clarify exactly what he's putting the 50,000 in and how long for? Thank you.
Thank you, Billy Ahern. And yeah, I mean, I'm just checking my notes here, and yeah, it's non-recurring in each of the 3 years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Liz Barrett with first comment.
Thank you, Provost, and I'd like to add my thanks to the Leader of the Council for incorporating so many of our proposals. Last February, we agreed a realistic level of council tax for the current year and indicatively for next year, 26-27, to put our finances on a sounder footing. In December, the irresponsible behaviour of our independent and Conservative colleagues drove a coach and horses through that sustainable approach, resulting in the drastic cuts to jobs and services that are proposed in the budget paper. I'd like to say that I'm very sorry for the distress and worry this has caused to many of our own workforce and to those who deliver many of the services that we rely on over the last couple of months as they were concerned about their jobs. I am sorry too that we face bringing another large increase in council tax this year, but we still need this to recover from the years of SNP government council tax freeze and another real terms cut to funding for councils this year, and also the SNP government's complete failure to listen to the pleas for help to tackle the health and social care emergency faced across the country. This hits Perth and Kinross particularly hard, as we've heard this morning, due to our demographics and our large rural population. Our common goal is a Perth and Kinross where everyone can live life well, free from poverty and inequality. We recognise the impacts of intervention from the earliest stages for children who need it. We rejected the removal of early learning and childcare funding, and will continue to provide one peripatetic support teacher for each of our primary school management areas. Children were devastated to find that the climbing frame and equipment around it at Rayburn Park, just along from Craigie Primary School, was first blocked off with Harris fencing and then removed completely because it wasn't safe and there was no kit or budget to replace it. This is happening all over Perth and Kinross, and I'm really delighted that the administration support our calls for restoration of funding to inspect, maintain and replace our children's playground equipment to help tackle the backlog of repairs. We also supported continued funding for the opportunities provided by the Duke of Edinburgh Award, which is often the starting point for many in a lifetime of volunteering. Speaking of volunteers, we know that our community groups can make a little funding and support go a very long way. Let Them For All do brilliant work through their community fridges, saving hundreds of tonnes of food from going to landfill each year and helping to tackle poverty, and just 16,000 as accepted by the SNP will help them to continue to run their satellites at Muirton and Moncrieff community fridges and to support the Bankfoot Food Share Pantry. Last week, we approved PKC's Climate Action Report and ongoing plan, recognising the need for increased initiatives and community engagement addressing the climate and nature emergencies. The Lib Dem group rejects the proposed cut to support from Tayside Biodiversity Partnership to community groups for habitat creation, natural flood management and ecosystem restoration. And that's why we asked for additional funding for bloom and diversity groups and Friends of Cemeteries to support biodiversity, and 10,000 towards project management and support for their larger projects across Perth and Kinross communities through Take a Pride in Perth and Kinross. We'll also continue the community environmental We would also continue the Community Environmental Challenge Fund at a level reflecting the recent levels of take-up to support community-led environmental projects. Last year, the Lib Dems called for the setting up of the Community Resilience Fund. This year, we're calling for a property flood resilience grant scheme, and my apologies, we referred to that as flood prevention in our amendment. That was my fault. This is to provide grants to owners of properties in areas which will never qualify for flood risk management measures, even if the Scottish Government ever does offer councils the funding support that we need to help them to protect their property. Councillors, our amendment supports our common goal of a Perth and Kinross where everyone can live life well, free from poverty and inequality, and I commend it to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Councillor Stuart Dawson next.
Provost, thank you. Let me start off first with setting out just some of the proposals that we as an administration have rejected and allay the concerns of many. On street cleaning, there's 12 operatives across Perth and Kinross. All will remain, and I'm pleased that includes our new street cleaner in Crete. We rejected what was put forward as on public conveniences and comfort schemes. Hopefully we can even build upon that with future funding possibilities in the future. On the Duke of Edinburgh scheme, and I know amongst others, Logus and Crieff, with youth work and also after Arda, we're really concerned about that. It's not going to happen. We also rejected the restructuring of external funding support from 27-28. And this is something we argued for 2-3 years back. In fact, I want to see us build upon that, and in particular in areas of match funding. And one of those areas covered by that team was in the Community Environment Challenge Fund, and that can leverage in 5 to 6 times the amount of the 100,000 that's put in. That fund will remain, and I'm so pleased. But I want to focus also on positives. Locally, I'm very pleased with some of the proposals. On Experience Crieff, Bailey Brock and myself are going to be meeting with them tomorrow, and 2 of the 3 ward councillors really are involved in this, especially the Tartan Festival next year. And the funding there is now going to be 60,000 in years 2 and years 3. On Kinross and Crieff, I'm very pleased with the sports facilities and that being brought forward. I think that's great news for people in both communities. In 27 in Kinross, and what starts in Crieff in 28. Also on the funding for rural schools, we need to do more there, obviously in terms of capital expenditure and revenue expenditure, but we are accelerating funding on that front. I think that's going to be particular benefit to parents with pupils at Comrie Primary School. It's accelerated repairs and maintenance, and where external buildings do in particular need investment to improve thermal performance and internal environment. We need to speed that up. But finally, I take it the position if I take overall, and I think one of the big things on this is in terms of what we're doing on roads, on structures, and on pavements, and that capital investment is very significant. I suspect it's greater than been put forward by other groups. We'll get the final figures, but I think it's significant, and it ties in the capital budget next. Also, the funding we're providing, not just to Perth Theatre and Concert Hall, but in particular to Culture Perth and Kinross. But on our libraries, on our rural libraries in particular, what's really going to matter is consideration of the Libraries Review on 17th of June. And that, by the way, is the same day that we consider the tourism visitor levy. There may be perhaps a linkage. I think also perhaps there may be a linkage to what we're putting forward, 50,000 in years 1 and 2 on community ice feasibility studies. It's very early on that. I think there is scope here in terms potentially of capital expenditure and of revenue expenditure, but let's see on that. Finally, there's a number of other things I welcome. In particular, I think it's good that we are putting provisioning in for war memorials It's something that matters to people throughout Perth and Kinross. I'm pleased that we're doing that. So I support this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dawson. Bailey Ahern next.
Thank you, Provost. I would like to start by congratulating the Instrumental Music Services Big Band for winning the Scottish Young Musicians Ensemble of the Year in Glasgow at the weekend. The second year in a row that Perth and Kinross have won this award. This is a brilliant example of what can be achieved when we invest in our young people, with the Instrumental Music Service funding already agreed for another year. I will be supporting the Scottish Conservative and Unionist Group's amendment. As you've already heard, we listen to the public and their priorities from the survey, and our budget reflects those wishes. I'm going to highlight two areas from our budget. The firstly, to reverse the budget reduction from 2 years ago that will come into force this year, and that is the inclusion support redesign. At a time when more and more young people with significant ASN need support in getting a supported education outside a mainstream setting, we want to reverse the reduction of one full-time employee at Navigate from 5 to 4 and the reversal of the 0.6 FTE from the Educational Psychology Service at a cost of £104,000. This will allow for more consultation time and meet the needs of the ever-increasing number of young people that require this service. Secondly, as Armed Forces Champion, I have a lot of requests from residents and groups from across Perth and Kinross Council to help repair and clean their local war memorial. Many of the over 100 memorials have not been touched in many years, and some of the more prominent memorials need some repairs. We and the families remember those that gave their ultimate sacrifice at these memorials several times a year and not just at Remembrance in November. Trying over the years to get work done on them has failed, as it tends to fall outside of the green space budget. We therefore have put in £50,000 for the next 3 years to carry out this work. This is a start, as some will require more work than others and cost more, but this will go a long way to start making our memorials looked after. Thank you to the Leader of the Council for including this in their budget for the next 3 years. As I said at the start, I will be supporting the Scottish and Conservative Unionist Group budget that delivers for the people of Perth and Kinross. Thank you.
Thank you, Bailey Ahern. Bailey next.
Thank you, Provost. I'd like to start by congratulating the SNP administration on their budget. It's taken them 4 years, but finally they present a budget that has vision, clarity and purpose. Sadly, though, the vision here is to tax those for whom car ownership is a distant dream, to pay to upgrade the roads they can't drive on. And sadly, that's not a vision I can support. We should ask ourselves the question, do the roads even need an extra 15 million of investment? We should take a look at objective data on this matter before committing this level of public spending on a perceived problem. The latest local government benchmarking data paints an interesting picture. It tells us that our B road network is in a better condition than 4 out of 5 of our rural neighbours. As an example, in Argyll and Bute, 58% of the B road network needs maintenance. In Angus, it's 42%, while in Perth and Kinross, it's just 35%. Yes, you heard it right. The condition of our roads is better than 4 out of 5 of our rural neighbours, with only Fife doing slightly better. And the picture isn't much different for our sea roads. PKC is not the sick man of Scotland when it comes to the condition of our roads. This is a political choice. This is an investment in chasing positive headlines from the local press over actually tackling poverty, which is the real problem our area faces. I suspect the majority of the SNP group would agree with me that housing and energy costs are the root of most of the poverty we face in our area. Yet there's nothing here for additional new housing, no support for additional insulation for council houses on the very eve of another energy crisis. This is a political choice. 15 million on roads instead of 15 million on addressing the housing and energy crisis in our area. 15 million could build up to 100 new houses in our area. We'd collect rent on those and build more houses. Instead, we're borrowing money and putting it into potholes. It's notable too that the SNP budget leaves this council with a deficit of £15 million after year 3. We should keep that number in mind, because whomever is sat here in 3 years' time may need to make 15 million of revenue budget cuts to balance it. That's what's being pushed down the road here. The Liberal Democrats and Conservatives don't do much better on the deficit either. They too are happy to give folks sweeties today in this Holyrood election year. In doing so, they're lining us all up to have to make crippling cuts to the council services next year and the year after. On the other hand, I commend the independent budget for ending year 3 in a balanced position. We'll hear members blaming all sorts of external factors for the choices we make today. But remember this is all a political choice, and those choices are being made in this chamber, and they're being made today. We were told by the Chief Exec at the start of this term that we faced a stark choice, and that choice was between funding potholes or poverty. The SNP administration has gone for potholes. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you, Bailey. Councillor Peter Barrett next.
Thank you, Provost. History repeats itself, depressingly sometimes. And last year, when we only faced a budget pressure of 6.7 million in health and social care, the Scottish Government gave us nothing. When that pressure burst its banks with a £4 million overspend, still the Scottish Government, John Swinney and Shona Robson, gave us nothing, despite having a £750 million underspend in the Scotland Reserve, from which they could have answered the needs of vulnerable people in Perth and Kinross. This year, amazingly, we have a £15 million pressure in health and social care. Wonder, is it to be third time lucky for the increasing numbers of people in Perth and Kinross needing care and the burgeoning costs of complex care? And I'm looking to the left of the chamber for an answer. But as Eric Drysdale knows only too well, his masters at Holyrood have come up with nada, nix, niente. And it doesn't matter what language you use, the answer is a big fat zero. Provost, unlike the Scottish Government, we want to support those most in need with hard cash and not just warm words and a deaf ear. I've worked closely with communities and community anchor organisations for the past 6 years. I know the impact that our local community food shares have on tackling hunger and poverty, treating people with dignity as well as protecting the planet. Leitham for All's food shares in Moncrieff and on the Dunkeld Road have seen the numbers of people in the most deprived acorn categories rise by more than 50% in the current year. And I've also seen how little short-dated supermarket food there can be for those food shares to offer. And that's why we're proposing £16,000 additional funding over the next 2 years to support the satellite food shares, including bank food. Our budget contains a plethora of ideas and innovations. We remain committed to maintaining the £500,000 financial insecurity and welfare fund to provide a safety net for people caught by the poverty trap and to deliver early intervention to divert people out of financial harm's way. We will continue to fund innovation in homeless prevention, taking this council's sector-leading record as an exemplar of national best practice and performance even higher, by giving the team resources for new tools, by expanding the Think Yes fund to the private sector with an investment of £80,000. We'll take the impact and learning of our creative prison discharge protocol further, and we'll recruit a new resettlement link officer to provide targeted housing support to new Scots, people who have secured the right to remain in our country and bear down on wasteful cost of temporary accommodation. We will invest £50,000 for each of the next 2 years to smooth those transitions and give people homes from which to build their futures here. We'll again draw on the sterling works of our private rented sector access team's efforts to enhance their ability to incentivise landlords to provide properties and improve the supply of good quality, more affordable homes. We'll underline our indelible commitment to being a council of sanctuary and support integration and community cohesion via the newly established learning station in the city centre to deliver ESOL with £98,000 next year. Provost, misogyny is on the rise in Scotland, and worryingly so, particularly online and amongst young people, with toxic masculinity being promoted by online influencers. Twice as many girls feel unsafe in school due to sexism compared to a decade ago. We need to expand our equally safe work and our work to tackle violence against women and girls to respond to these new challenges, and that's why we're proposing to introduce a project officer to lead the work in our schools and promote a whole school approach to preventing gender-based violence. I commend the Scottish Liberal budget to the Chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Councillor Robertson next, please.
Thank you, Provost. Firstly, I would like to thank the Leader of the Council, who's followed on from the example of the previous Leader of the Council, Grant, Grant Lane, for the inclusive way he has dealt with the budget and tried to incorporate many of the good ideas that have come from all the political parties. no political party holds all the answers, and I'm pleased that everyone has been included as part of the budget. One or two things that I'm really pleased to see is the fact that the way the money has been directed to try to help communities help themselves by funding things like, and you've added extra funding to tracks who can attract vast amounts of money for the money that comes from the council to support paths and cycleways throughout the Kinross area. And also I'm pleased to see that eventually funding's been put in place for the Rumbling Bridge Gorge, which has been sadly neglected. And if anybody's not visited the Rumbling Bridge Gorge, it's an amazing natural attraction and well worth a visit. And I hope that the funding that's been put in place will bring it back to its former glory and make it even a bigger attraction in the future. The last thing I'd like to talk about is the continued funding for the Community Investment Fund, or as the administration now calls it, the investment tool for local communities. I'm a great fan of this, and I think it's again helping communities to help themselves. My only slight drawback is that part of it might be including participatory budgeting, which is an absolute nightmare. And I have examples of small local groups who have got great ideas and trying to put them forward, and instead of actually working on their ideas, they spend their time trying to drum up support to get votes for what they want to do. We shouldn't be asking local communities to try and do that. If it's worthy of funding, we should support them. And the people that should take these decisions are our local elected members and members of the local community councils. That's how the Community Investment Fund was originally established, and it worked really well. So I hope we will keep that element in it, although I understand that because of government guidelines, part of it has to be done through participatory budgeting, which again, I've said I'm totally opposed to. But all in all, I think the budget is good. We're dealing, as Councillor Barrett said, we're dealing with very difficult times, and it's hard to allocate the resources fairly, but that's what I think we've all tried to do. So I'll certainly support the Liberal Democrat budget, and I'm grateful to the administration for incorporating so many of our ideas into it today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Councillor Rebeck next.
Thank you very much, Provost. May I first start by also saying thank you to Scott and his team for the work that they've done. In previous budgets, when I've not been quite so involved in the budget, quite so much as I have been personally, I've always thought it's just a nice thing to say, you know, and they're only doing their job kind of thing. Now I understand why all previous leaders have profusely thanked them, because they do go above and beyond in this process, that is for sure. But when we speak about the budget, we do have to remember we are speaking about people's lives, whether as council employees or as members of our communities. And there are things we all do as councillors in budgets that adversely affect people as we try and get the best value for the public pound. And some of these things will not be completely pain-free. But what we have tried to do in this budget is protect our most vulnerable citizens, make the best possible provision for our young learners in education, invest in our lived-in environment in the city centre, but also across the whole of Perth and Kinross. And I congratulate Councillor Waters on his idea of a hit squad based at Westbank. We will invest in our housing service, and I thank Councillor McEwen for his input in that regard. We're protecting our sports and culture offering, which is so vital for all our health and well-being. We're continuing to invest in biodiversity. We continue to protect people where we can and mitigating against the worst effects of the cost of living crisis with further investment in financial insecurity fund and other anti-poverty measures. We've got a variety of funding for vital local organisations. Willie Robertson's right, helping communities help themselves. We are proposing council tax at 8.9%, which is £2.61 a week for a Band D householder. So we're doing all of the above for £2.61 a week. And for most people, that's not actually an eye-watering amount. For some people it is, That's why the investment in financial and security fund is so important, so we can protect people where necessary. But we're getting all of the above, but we're also, what we're protecting for that £2.61 is also really important, as a lot of groups are. Street cleaners, public toilets, free school meals in the holidays, Duke of Edinburgh funding, Citizen Advice Bureau funding, school clothing grants, business support, biodiversity, parent council funding, lots of other stuff that we're all getting protected for £2.61 a week, and investing in all the things that I spoke about first. I do think the collaboration with business that the leader spoke about in his speech is really important as well, because you do need economy to, in the social contract, you do need to try and encourage the economy. So I do appreciate what the leader said about business convention. It kind of leads on to the curricular expansion that our Education and Children's Services team are trying to do, working closely with business and further education is really important. We're doing lots of exciting work in that as well. And I do accept what some of our Conservative group colleagues have mentioned in terms of support and additional support need. I know that colleagues from all political parties that sit with me in the learning and families, I know that their heart is in that, which is why we've also made provision to restore the senior social care officer at Navigate. I do think that is really important. We're very proud of our intensive support provision expansion. Keeping kids in their local communities with friends and siblings is very important as well. And in terms of the high school replacement, that's absolutely right. That does need to be part of the conversation going forward. I think that's absolutely right. And the last thing I'm going to say, because the Provost is kind of looking at me as if to say when am I going to shut up, and quite right too. I do think that Councillor Barrett makes a good point about toxic masculinity. I was at the Toxic Masculinity conference that we had back in the Salutation Hotel, where Alan Bissett made an absolutely superb presentation about the problems that exist in today's society. So I do welcome Councillor Peter Barrett's contribution on that, and I'm happy to support the administration budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Revick, and I was just listening intently to you. Councillor Allen next, please.
Thank you, Provost. First of all, I'd like to reiterate the thanks to Scott and his team for all that they've done in getting us here today. I've been a campaigner along with many others who are equally concerned about the possibility of losing library services across towns in Perth and Kinross. We all understand the need to make budget balance. We all understand the desperate need to make relevant cuts in services given the hellish settlement we would receive from the Scottish Government. The last thing we need to be doing in such circumstances is closing down our libraries. If you ever visit our libraries, they are focal points in local communities. Whether you engage with young, middle-aged or old, you'll be guaranteed to see smiles. Yes, people really do enjoy going to a library. Rarely do you see a sad face. Since our rural libraries were first threatened a couple of years ago, we have worked across the political divide in Perth and Kinross to ensure that we do not diminish these hubs of society. I'm absolutely delighted that the other groups in this chamber are like-minded. Important as much as it is, our libraries go way beyond just reading and books. Library is not just a library, it's a community hub. Neither can you judge it and its success and the impact of a library on footfall alone. And last and not least, let's not forget our fabulous, dedicated, experienced librarians. These cannot be replicated by volunteers. There are 5 rural libraries at threat in a similar position. We need to find a way to provide, maintain and ring-fence budgets for our libraries. We need to ensure that funding is secure. Councillors, I'm on the budget review group for my party. We've included continued funding until the results of the review to ensure that our libraries stay open are fully funded, so that they're not continually threatened as an easy target. Let the current review take its course, then let's see what's required. Libraries are an easy target. There is no income. However, it's a service that the Council have a statutory obligation to provide. Let's not get embroiled in a debate about the word adequate. If it's not there, it's not adequate. Final point from me, if we're to close the library in Auchterarder, there is then no, let alone inadequate, there is no provision south of the Broxden roundabout. We need to stop that thought. I'd like to move briefly to talk about suicide and its prevention. Mental health is sadly to the fore in our society. I would think that every councillor present will have been touched by suicide or attempted suicide over the years. We all know somebody who has been affected by this. It's terrible that anyone is mentally driven to such a futile and needless outcome. So I have a plea. Can we please put a little extra into funding for one of our important volunteer services? The Samaritans work in very difficult circumstances, listening to, working with, and encouraging people with real life difficulties to take a different path. They work with people who are most at risk. They really are a lifeline. Then we learn that they're all volunteers. They all pay for their expenses and rarely see any return. Our Samaritan volunteers, in turn, also need support and counselling. I'm making a request to cut them a little slack and take away their own anxieties of trying to afford all that they do for our vulnerable and needy residents. Our group have requested an extra £10,000 to support our Samaritans. I hope the Council will back this request. I will be supporting the Scottish Conservative Unionist amendment, which tries to go some way to deal with a cost of council tax crisis. I commend it to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillor Illingworth next.
Thank you, Provost. John Swinney loves gimmicks, and one of his favourite gimmicks is a 19% income tax rate. However, our constituents are facing a substantial increase in council tax, which will be no means compensated by the maximum of 61 pence per week that the Scottish Government is giving them. Provost, this is not a cost of living budget. This is a cost of council tax crisis budget, and I'll be supporting the Conservative budget. The second point I'd like to make is about maintenance. We all maintain our homes, our roofs, our gardens, our cars. And one of the reasons we do that is because it makes stuff last longer. We get a really good return on investment. It's the same for roads and bridges and buildings. If we don't invest in maintaining stuff, it costs us a lot more in the long term. The SNP administration has let this slip over the last 4 years. We've never seen the roads in such bad state. As one of the officers said to me last week, I've never seen the roads in this state. Maintaining stuff is always a good return, and I'm very glad that we're doing a sort of rapid fire catch up, but we really should have been doing it all along. My third point is about the social care budget. As a member of the IJB, I'm proud that we've reduced delayed discharges, and I'm proud that we've put forward more than £9 million of savings. But I'm also glad that none of the major parties, none of the major are suggesting further cuts, despite the SNP's failure to fund our desperate need for social care. Thank you very much, Provost.
Thank you very much, Councillor Illingworth. Councillor Carr next, please.
Thank you, Provost. There are many strong communities within Perth and Kinross, and within these communities there are some amazing people that go above and beyond to ensure the communities that they live in are the best that they can be. It's reassuring to see that the administration budget recognises that, with a £350,000 investment in local communities this year and also next year, providing funding to ensure that communities, especially those in more rural areas, are well supported. I fully support the additional funding provided to ensure the continuation of the great work by organisations in the heart of our communities. I'm sure that this financial support for the likes of Buttons and Bows, Experience Creef, the Big Hoose, the Nuke, and many, many others will see the creation of many positive projects within their respective communities. Within my own ward, it is very encouraging to see funding being provided for investment in the multi-use games areas to support the great work of the Auchterarder Sports Hub.
and providing critical funding to ensure that the amazing work that Auchterard and Aberystwyth Connected can continue to deliver. Like many community-led organisations within Perth and Kinross, A&A Connected have been at the forefront of many of the positive projects within the area over recent years, and this funding will allow them to continue the great work that benefits so many within the community. I'm happy to support the administration budget.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Mayor next.
Thank you, Provost. I have a very short comment to make, and I have to thank Councillor Peter Barrett for clarifying that the new workers coming to Pooler House are actually the same as the workers who are based at Broxden. But nevertheless, I particularly welcomed the Leader of the Council telling us this today. These two departments coming to Pooler House are maximising the benefits of the Perth and Kinross Council's decision to purchase that building, while also contributing to a reduction in our carbon footprint across Perth and Kinross. These workers coming daily into Perth city centre rather than to Broxden will likely park in our Perth and Kinross owned Canoe Street car park, providing extra revenue into our Perth and Kinross parking account. There will also be a spin-off benefit to retail units and hospitality providers in the vicinity of the city centre. And all increases in city centre footfall is to be welcomed for a busy and vibrant city centre. So well done to all concerned in getting them relocated to Pooler House, and I also commend the SNP budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mayor. Councillor Harvey next, please.
Thank you, Provost. I've got two quite disparate subjects here, so I'll try and do them relatively quickly. First of all, I wish to thanks again to the officers and everybody else that's been part of this. I was part of the BRG as well, and getting to see how the sausage was made was very interesting. You just think it appears like magic, it doesn't. I want to focus on a couple of issues. First of all, the rejection of the ditch and gully maintenance cuts. This will allow us to continue to invest money to save money, and we'll be doing some proactive assessment of that type of work. It will prevent a lot of flooding in various areas and a lot of other additional costs and worry for residents. My main thing I'd like to welcome the restoration of the grant for the Perth Festival of the Arts. As I'm sure all the other councillors and officers are aware, this festival is Perth City's annual arts festival and has been running since 1972. It's run on a mainly voluntary basis by local people, and it is a vibrant multi-day celebration of visual and performing arts, and runs for 10 to 12 days in May. I would encourage everybody to go to it if they can. And it delivers over 40 varied events during that time, and attracting over 14,000 audience and participants, many of whom stay overnight, and estimated it contributes £500,000 to PKC area. Since 2023, it has not had any input from the council, no current financial support, which has prevented us doing some of the things they wanted to do. However, we're delighted to restore this support to a level of 20k, which will allow the festival to continue to operate at the level it's at when some of the other streams of support are less reliable. I thank us for. Sorry, thank us. I knew I was trying to say far too much, but I will be supporting this budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Shires next.
Thank you, Provost. Like others have said, it is disappointing that we again find ourselves in a budget situation where the impact of the rural premium and the need for a fairer settlement still has not been addressed by the Scottish Government. And frankly, in my view, COSLA have failed in making the Scottish Government aware of the impact of their decisions on our service delivery options. We've included in our budget an intention to withdraw from COSLA and would seek to work with other rural authorities to provide a stronger voice for Perth and Kinross and all those who live in rural Scotland who are quite frankly ignored in favour of the cities. If we don't take these actions, then we're likely to continue to be ignored. Councillor Drysdale went to efforts to meet with the First Minister and the Cabinet Secretary for Health, and yet no further funding has come our way. The SNP chief figure on COSLA said about the 2026 settlement that it was very poor and that it has left council finances increasingly unsustainable and will inevitably mean reductions in services and jobs. This has to stop and we have to be listened to.
Perth and Kinross is a fabulous place in which to live and work. We have excellent schools and facilities for children and young people. We're blessed with strong communities where people of all ages can live life well. That does, though, come at a cost. This budget has been about the choices we as councillors make in balancing the needs of the youngest and the oldest. We've sought to support our education provision across nursery, primary and secondary schools and invested money in helping those needing support to find new employment. Small amounts of money for initiatives like the Starfish Way and diversionary activities to be delivered by our amazing youth work sector would make a real difference. We've also put money back into the budget for the specialist services who provide support for young people who need it to assist them in engaging with education, protecting teams working across schools, providing supports to those that need it most. Being very parochial, there is money in our and the Independence budget for improvements for the Ruthven Road, one many of you will not have heard of unless you live out there. Our residents don't really care where the council boundaries are if the road that they rely on in a flooding event is in poor condition, and this investment to work with Angus Council to improve that lifeline route for Eastern Perthshire residents who need to get to the A94 and beyond will make life better and improve safety on this vital road link. I'm disappointed this hasn't been included in the administration budget. This is a measure our communities have called for and we should be listening to them. Finally, Blairgowrie High School is one of the last of the old secondary school buildings in Perth and Kinross, and following the completion of the recreation centre, attention must now turn to a future development of the school building, which serves the communities in Eastern Perthshire. The funding to begin that process is an important signal that we want to see this happen before too long. And having seen the positive outcomes for Pitlochry with the review of their community facilities, Councillors Braun, Anderson, James and I would like to see this for children, young people and the wider community in Blairgowrie. I appreciate that there is money in the pot for ongoing repairs and refurbishment, but our growing community needs to know that a new build will come in the future, and this is a key step in that progress. Councillor Ribbick, it's fine to say that we are absolutely right to include this in our budget, but we need a firm commitment, and that's not in yours. You had the opportunity to take it on board today and you haven't. Our budget is positive, practical and deliverable. We have kept council taxes at as low a rate as possible whilst ensuring we've met the requirements of our growing and ageing population, and it seeks to deliver a Perth and Kinross where everyone truly can live life well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shires. Councillor Frampton next, please.
Thank you. Today we've navigated our way through the intricacies of budget planning. It is essential that we recognise the profound impact our decisions have on the lives of our residents. I am particularly pleased to highlight that our budget includes a provision for a mobility hub feasibility study, which includes Bridge of Earn. This is not just a line on a page. It represents a significant step for my Amundsen Earn ward, especially the Bridge of Earn community. For some time, I've been working to address the parking challenges that have arisen due to the welcome and successful Ember bus service that has a pickup stop in Bridge of Earn. These parking issues are not merely an inconvenience, they disrupt lives of the residents in this community. A feasibility study offers a chance to explore innovative solutions that can alleviate the burden. I am optimistic that this study will pave the way for a practical solution to be found for Bridge of Earn. Within our budget, we have accepted almost 15 million of pressures the Health and Social Care Partnership face. Despite the pressures, the investment proposed today will allow us to continue to work towards our obligations of ensuring that our most vulnerable and ageing population continue to receive the services they so desperately need. Perth and Kinross face geographical challenges due to our rurality that can make access to care more difficult and expensive. Throughout all the challenges of providing health and social care needs, we have an unwavering dedication of healthcare workers, social workers and third sector partners, all who work exceptionally hard to provide for care needs throughout Perth and Kinross. Each home visit, telephone call and act of kindness resonates deeply with those who rely on us for health and social care services. By providing these vital services to our people, we are ensuring that the dignity and care our vulnerable and older population deserves is deliverable. And our thanks go to all who work towards providing a dedicated and nurturing service to our communities. In education, I am happy that our budget has continued provisions for the educational needs of all pupils. This is a powerful dedication to our young learners, including those who require additional support to thrive. We're especially proud of the innovative new additional support provisions now in our schools. This initiative represents our unwavering belief that every child deserves an opportunity to succeed regardless of their challenges. It is vital that we continue to nurture our young learners who have additional support needs. Included also in the budget is funding for our Promise Improvement Lead to continue coordination of such important work within education. I am also happy to see provision continue for our outdoor learning and development. This reflects our understanding of the importance of well-rounded education. As we all know, learning extends beyond the classroom walls. It's also important to note that as we witness the poverty attainment gap shrinking, we know that our efforts and funding are making a difference. This is a testament to the hard work and dedication of everyone involved in the education community. Our thanks goes to them for their commitment to our young people and their education, and I will be supporting the administration's budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Frampton. Councillor Lane next.
Thanks, Provost. I have to say I found this budget process interesting, and the fact that it's the first time in 13 years that I've not been heavily involved in it. And I'm enjoying this sort of stress-free popcorn sort of event that I'm witnessing today. On a serious note, I'm really concerned about the fact that we're removing £2 million from the capital budget to support the revenue budget, and feel that that £2 million should have been all spent on capital projects. I don't know if it's unsustainable moving forward doing this, or if it sets a precedent that when we're up against it again, we'll take more out of the capital fund. But I welcome wholeheartedly the £15 million committed to our road and structures. I'll have to pick up with Councillor Bailey on the fact that we need £17 million to stand steady. We are 30th, I think, out of 32 in our A-class roads condition, and the condition's been falling year over year since 2021. If I'm wrong with these figures, which I read last night in my new role, I will apologise to him on that. But I noticed he only talked about B and C class roads, where we're actually not doing so badly. There's no point of building new houses, etc., if nobody wants to build them because they can't get there because the roads and the bridges are in such poor condition. So I fully support that budget inclusion. Also welcome the 120k for gully and emptying and ditch clearance. Doing this will also help the roads be maintained. I welcome also the rise in the funding for Adapt Your Property projects and the commitment of 200k for a city centre task force pilot. All these things are within the SNP budget. The observant within the Chamber will realise that these funding proposals fall within my new remit as the convener of E&I, and I thank the SNP administration for including these proposals in their budget. I like the suggestion from the Conservative group regarding the Blairgowrie High School, where a long time ago, I think about 50 years past, I watched the new building be completed. And I think that's a project that we need to push forward, and mentioning it today puts it at the top of the agenda. So I welcome that proposal. Also, the proposal from the Conservative group about extra funding for visitor rangers. I'm worried about the growing deficit, and I think we have to have a really close look at the proposals from the independent group, which come up with proposals which are often disregarded when they are initially aired, but then brought back and adopted in future years. I've seen that happen several times over the time that I've been within the council. There's many things in the Liberal Democrat budget as well I can support, but as it seems to be almost conjoined with the SNP budget, I'll not go into any of them now that everything else has been absorbed into the SNP budget. The one thing I'm concerned about, and within both these budgets, is the Scottish Welfare Fund Financial Security Fund. I'm hoping that the leader of the council can say that if this needs augmented as the year moving forward, because I think we're 800,000 last year and we're only 300,000 this year, can it be augmented and will be augmented if necessary through F&R in the course of this financial year? I have to say that it's incumbent on all elected members to monitor the spend of funds allocated today to ensure they hit the mark that they are intended to, that when we put them forward. My personal red lines were the public toilets in Dunkeld, and this is the first time I've got to be really parochial, so the public toilets in Dunkeld and the removal of any of our street cleaning operatives. Also, however, I cannot support cuts to the climate change and biodiversity agenda. Whatever the outcome today, the hard work for all of us starts again tomorrow. This budget is not just for the focus for us today and one day, but for many days and years ahead, and we've got to continue to work to provide the best possible services with the finance we have for the people of Perth and Kinross. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Councillor Braun next, please.
Thanks, Provost. And if I may, on a personal note, before I begin, if I could just thank all those members who expressed an interest in my tie today. Thank you very much for that. I never expected to be a star icon at my age, but I guess that's politics for you. And as I say, if you've got it, flaunt it. Provost, firstly, as a member of the Scottish Conservative BRG, my thanks to Scott and his team for the work in what they did to help us, and obviously at a time which we all agree was a challenging budget process. But like a broken record, here we all are again, trying to form a balanced budget for the residents of Perth and Kinross against the backdrop of a seemingly uncaring Scottish Government, which continually fails to provide sufficient funding for its local authorities, whilst they expect them to continue to provide essential services from education to health and social care. However, in the circumstances, the Scottish Conservative Group has produced a budget which we believe achieves the most vital aims by rejecting the most unpalatable savings and adding further proposals to aid education, to aid economic development, to maintain roads and structures, and to fully support our health and social care service. And furthermore, we've added extra funds for aiding anti-poverty and to support culture in Perth and Kinross. And in doing all of this, we have kept in mind the ongoing financial pressures that households are still facing by limiting any council tax rise to a minimum. My colleagues have already called this a cost of council tax crisis. Accordingly, as you've seen, our proposed increase in council tax for the year 2026-27 sits at 6.95%. Should remember that whatever we do, whatever we plan, someone somewhere has to pay. Our budget has many important details, as can be seen. To highlight just a few, we have rejected the proposed removal of the Community Environmental Challenge Fund, important to our many voluntary groups, and we've rejected the closure of the remaining public toilets and the cancellation of the current comfort schemes. Having attended the recent RASAC AGM, we cannot ignore the important work they do, and therefore we have added funding of £45,000 for this coming year and funding of the same amount to Perthshire's Women's Aid in recognition of their equally important work. Further down, you will read that further funds have been included for road sign repair and cleaning, an important aid to road safety. And finally, a small sum of £30,000 to cover the cost of 3 bus shelters on Rattery High Street. An elderly resident came to me and asked about this. This is a long road, as my 2 ward council colleagues know, in a deprived area where many, including the elderly and school children, need to use buses, sometimes in bad weather. Only 1 bus shelter exists on that long road, and this only because of a Section 75 agreement with a house developer when that site was being developed. This funding would provide 1 enclosed shelter and 2 cover shelters because of the size of pavements, and possibly the option of live information. This really is an urgent need, and I am disappointed that the SNP administration has not picked up on this, but I can assure them I will not be giving up. I started with disappointment at the continued lack of support from the Scottish Government, but this year they have failed further. That many senior citizens want to live in Perth and Kinross is something for us to be proud of, but of course many do or will need some form of care. This is something we do and will do as a matter of duty to them, no matter what. However, costs rise, particularly with the rurality in mind, and having declared a health and social care emergency, it is a sad state of affairs that the Scottish Government have ignored the situation, and I have to say, shame on them. This must change, as the Leader of the Council mentioned. With that said, Provost, I commend this Scottish Conservative budget amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Braun. I read nothing into the fact that your tie is very similar to Councillor Barrett's today. Councillor Waters next, please.
Nice one, Provost. Thank you. And Councillor Braun is absolutely right with the bus stop situation. His tie is not too bad as well this morning, but and I did comment on the colour of it, but we won't go there in this meeting. But on the bus stop situation in Rattray, and I'm sure every councillor, certainly definitely all the rural councillors, can each come up with quite a few bus stops that are in need of being upgraded. This current year we received £374,000 of Transport Scotland towards bus infrastructure upgrades. That came in a bit late, so it is getting used on some projects. But officers are currently in the process of doing a needs-based analysis of all the bus stops, and I would encourage elected members to ensure that our bus team know about any issues within your wards, so these can get prioritised. And as we're expecting the similar money this coming year, that money will exist to upgrade our infrastructure and take that forward and deal with some of these issues that a lot of our communities are dealing with. Today we have the opportunity to make decisions that don't just balance a budget, but restore our natural environment, strengthen our communities and deliver real climate action across Perth and Kinross. First, I want to be absolutely clear. Rejecting the removal of the Community Environment Challenge Fund is essential. This is one of the most cost-effective tools we have. A relatively small council contribution unlocks 5 to 6 times more external funding. Thanks to Councillor Donaldson for that information. Bringing in significant investment for local paths, biodiversity projects, green space improvements, and community-driven environmental action. When we protect this fund, we empower volunteers, community councils, and local groups to deliver meaningful improvements on the ground, improvements we simply could not afford on our own. Similarly, rejecting the removal of dedicated support for the Tayside Biodiversity Partnership is an investment in our long-term resilience. The partnership connects species specialists, volunteers, land managers, schools, council services in a way no single organisation ever could. Their work on swifts, amphibians and reptiles, wetland species, wildlife recording, orchard planting, rain gardens and habit restoration forms the bedrock of our local biodiversity action plan. At a time when biodiversity is declining at an unprecedented rate, this partnership delivers high-impact, practical action for a fraction of the cost of in-house provision. Protecting biodiversity is not an optional extra. It safeguards our environment, our well-being, and our future as a region. Supporting this partnership is supporting our people, our places, and our long-term sustainability. Our proposals go even further. The very successful Green Living Fund is backed again with 200,000, and it continues to enable community-led projects that tackle both the climate emergency and the cost of living crisis. Projects that attract additional funding and drive local innovation. The reinvestment in ground maintenance will allow a managed phased reduction in service levels while still expanding proactive biodiversity work, ensuring we introduce ecological changes gradually based on evidence-based and in partnership with local communities. Establishing a biodiversity squad, enhancement squad, strengthens our capacity to care for our green spaces, whether it's planting trees, wildflowers, restoring habitats, and supporting community stewardship of nature-rich areas across Perth and Kinross. And finally, the Mobility Hub feasibility studies will help us plan the transport infrastructure for the next 30 years, building a cleaner, fairer, and more connected region. Taken together, these proposals are not isolated spending lines. They are strategic investment in climate resilience, nature positive, community empowered future. They demonstrate that we are serious about addressing the climate and biodiversity emergencies, not just in words, but through well-targeted, evidence-based action. I urge members to support these proposals and ensure Perth and Kinross continues to lead the way in environmental stewardship, community empowerment and sustainable placemaking. I commend this SNP budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. Point of clarification, Councillor Braun.
Yes, thanks, Provost. Just for the sake of transparency and with the presence of the press here, my tie doesn't imply any political intrigue. It was just the first one out the drawer this morning. I'm sorry.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillor James next, please.
Thanks, Provost. Here we are again on our annual mission to justify ourselves to the residents of Perth and Kinross on how we're better placed on how to spend their council tax money. Fact of the matter is, it isn't our money, and it's the easiest thing in the world to spend somebody else's money. Residents expect us to empty their bins, fix the potholes, clean streets, keep verges and parks clean, and such like. But we're held to ransom by Scottish Government year on year as they promised the good people of Scotland that they provide a wealth of free services and the streets will be paved with gold when they gain independence, yet continually underfund us as a local authority, leaving us to pick up the shortfall. I'll be supporting the Conservative amendment because we're constantly told we're facing a cost of living crisis and people are struggling to pay bills. Our budget accounts for the majority of the services that our council taxpayers expect from us, while keeping the increase to their council tax at a sensible level. I'm really disappointed that the Conservatives were the only group to have chosen to support the visitor management service in their budget. It's a vital service which protects rural communities, the loss of which will have a significant impact on people's lives, particularly in my own council ward of Strath Tay and particularly Clooney Loch and other loch areas where we expect a high visitor turnout. I would urge the administration to reinstate that 182 from the Conservative budget into theirs and take the money instead from the 350k investment for their local community funding, which actually is to provide a similar address. The 50k proposed by the Lib Dems and accepted by the administration is pretty pointless, to be honest, because it'll only provide 2 rangers and it doesn't even touch the surface of the problem that we have. In the last 9 years I've been a councillor here in Perth and Kinross, we've run through the same comedic pantomime every year, whereby each political group spends weeks to come up with a balanced budget, which will then be pitched against each other, and all the other groups have come up with a very similar budget. And it takes up an awful lot of time and valuable officer time, and thanks to our officers for the valuable advice that they've given us, because we're certainly no finance experts. First time any of us will see these budgets from the other political groups is about a couple of hours ago, actually, and they're presented at this meeting. We're then given a couple of hours to decide whether we agree with them or not, or if there's any common ground, and inevitably it'll be the budget of the largest party in the administration that will win the vote, and that budget will become substantive. In the future, may I be as bold to suggest that we depoliticise this process and, like grown-ups, jointly enter in discussion at the beginning of the process to come up with a fair budget that will be far more representative of the wider population and include a lot of really good ideas, which there are in some of these budgets. Controversial, maybe, Provost, but sensible also. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Councillor Oh my goodness, Councillor James even. Councillor Forbes next, please.
Thanks, Provost. We're fortunate to live in an area where older residents are well cared for. Many people choose to move here later in life. They should be welcomed, supported and valued. Whereas the head of finance made clear earlier today, rurality is our biggest enemy. If you counted, Scott mentioned it 4 times, and there was a reason. Across Scotland, there's a pattern emerging. Urban councils can keep tax rises low, whilst rural councils like ours are forced higher. That tells you everything about how hard it is to deliver services in a landscape like ours. And despite that, we receive an extra pittance from the Scottish Government with absolutely nothing to reflect the rurality of our situation. And the sad thing is we could have had more. Labour's decision to abstain was disappointing enough, but the real worry was the support they received from the Liberal Democrats. It seems they now share more than the colour of a tie, Provost. In years gone by, there was always something found down the back of the sofa. This year, with the pressure off, we lose out. And on play parks, I confess to mixed feelings. I welcome the money the Liberals suggested and that the SNP then subsequently accepted. Play parks matter to families and they matter to me. But let's be honest, 5 years ago about now, the SNP promised to renew every single play park in Scotland. That parliamentary session is almost over. The promise remains broken. And instead of using our budget to rescue SNP failures, the Lib Dems would be better embarrassing the government into delivering what they promised. On maybe a more positive note, I'm pleased to see such support across the Chamber for the Duke of Edinburgh's award, and as one of the gold award holders in the Chamber, someone who was not particularly academic and had to work hard to get decent qualifications, the Duke of Edinburgh award was a very welcome distraction. I'm pleased to see so many of us support that. But moving on to something maybe not quite so popular on visitors rangers, once again, no commitment from the administration. And these roles made a real difference in busy tourist areas. To exclude them is frankly quite extraordinary. And on to Tayside contracts, it's unacceptable to propose huge, unidentified cuts without any proposal on how the services they deliver would be replaced, and then unbelievably suggest leaving the organisation altogether, especially coming from a group which includes one of its own conveners. But finally, Provost, onto the topic of climate change. We again propose cancelling the Climate Change Committee. As I've said before, it drains officer time and public money. It's virtue signalling the highest order. But let me just be clear, I do not deny climate change exists, but I'd still like to go further and have even more cuts here, but we must comply with Scottish Government legislation. On the topic of climate change, there comes a point where aspiration must meet economic reality. Provost, that point is now.
Thank you, Councillor Forbes. Councillor Welch next, please.
Thank you, Provost. I'm pleased to see the significant investment in roads and bridges as part of this budget. This timely repair and maintenance of our critical infrastructure is key to ensure all road users can safely navigate our beautiful part of Scotland. As a keen cyclist and motorcyclist, potholes are a serious danger, and I welcome the money being allocated. I also welcome when the leader spoke about the Perth and Kinross supporting a business summit with 2 of our key employers, Aviva and SSE. Our SNP-led administration is clearly focused on supporting our local business community, and this together with the measures highlighted in the budget and recent National Growth Flag Award points to a more positive future for good quality jobs and opportunities for our young people. I support this SNP budget and the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor McCall.
Thank you, Provost. Like others, I should also thank Scott Walker and his team and the wider management team for all the work they've put into supporting not just the SNP group, but all groups across this chamber in preparation and readiness for this budget meeting today. Provost, I think that my own personal view is that within our SNP budget, health and wellbeing is a large part of what we hope to deliver for the people of Perth and Kinross. If I look at social care, I'm very pleased that there is continuing financial support for the Health and Social Care Partnership, I think from every single party in this chamber. We all know that the age demographics of our population and the rurality of our council area makes delivery of services more challenging than other councils, both in terms of service delivery and cost. As a member of the IGB and chair of the IGB Audit and Performance Committee, I can attest to the fiscal care that is taken at all times to the extent that Perth and Kinross Health and Social Care Partnership is one of the best performing in Scotland. I wish to thank Jackie Pepper and her management team for their hard work and dedication to the people of Perth and Kinross, and she will be a hard act to follow. I'm sure I speak for my colleagues in the IGB, Councillors Frampton and Councillor Illingworth, that we will continue to support the IGB and Health and Social Care Partnership officers to continue to deliver good fiscal and service delivery stewardship without the need to reduce quality of care to those in our communities who are most in need. However, the challenge is the demand is growing and our population is living longer and some mostly healthier, which is good. But we do need to think of new and innovative solutions as to how we make provision for all of us for advancing in years. So I welcome the provision in our budget to explore options for a care village or a retirement village that could provide integrated services and community living, and I look forward to the outcome of that feasibility study. Provost, I agree with Councillor Liz Barrett about the positive impact of community larders, and I also want to recognise her own effort in establishing one of the satellite community larders in our ward during the pandemic. It was very welcome and it still is very vibrant and ongoing. As a trustee of Lethem for All at the inception of its community larder initiative, it was a food waste reduction project led by the local community, and it has always been accessible to everyone. However, with the continuing cost of living crisis, it also provides a safety net for those in our communities who may find themselves in food poverty from time to time. So I am very pleased that we've included the Liberal Democrat amendment for additional funding in our budget motion. Colleagues, I probably mentioned before that I spent a lot of my youth at the old ice rink at Dunkeld Road. I know firsthand the health, fitness and social benefits a vibrant ice community brings to everyone who enjoys the various sports an ice rink offers. So I've always been supportive personally of an ice solution in Perth and Kinross, but I would also like to remind everyone that it's also a priority of everyone in the SNP group. It's just that it was not possible for an integrated solution within the PH2O solution at Thimble Row. But it does not mean that the issue was, if you can pardon the pun, Provost, put on ice. I do hope there is cross-party support to try and find a solution that will not only meet the requirements of the curling community, but also include skating and ice hockey, with flexibility to include out-of-season activities, with broad appeal within the wider community. So I welcome the funding in this budget motion to undertake a comprehensive feasibility study with all stakeholders to hopefully find a long-term, affordable, community-led solution for Perth City. And being a little bit parochial, I would very much welcome a solution to be sited in the current footprint of the Dewar Centre in my ward. Provost, before I finish, I just want to address a couple of things mentioned by others. Firstly, I would suggest to Councillor Caroline Shires that Perth Academy in my ward would probably challenge Blairgowrie High and indeed any other school in our council area with respect to its age and its need for refurbishment. But I know that a spot solution for individual buildings is not the most productive way forward, and the correct route is a comprehensive schools review that has currently been undertaken, and I look forward to the outcome of that review in due course. And finally, I want to address the concerns of Bailey about funding for housing. This is managed within the Strategic Housing Investment Plan from a capital perspective, and not this revenue budget before us today. The housing revenue account is ring-fenced, funded by tenants' rents, and is therefore also outside the scope of this revenue budget here today. Issues such as warmer homes initiatives and other improvements are prioritised by tenants themselves as part of the rent setting process. These are not omitted from this budget today, but are part of an ongoing improvement programme for our tenants' homes across all of Perth and Kinross and funded from the housing revenue account. Provost and colleagues, I commend the SNP budget to this chamber. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor McCall. Councillor McCall was the last comment, so we now move on to summing up. Councillor Colin Stewart, you're the first to sum up.
Thanks, Provost. I'll remain seated and with the microphone close to my mouth as per instruction. Provost, fellow elected members, thanks very much everyone for your contributions over the course of the afternoon. there have been some very thoughtful and well-considered points made, and I think it's fair to say that in all of the budget proposals that we've discussed over the course of today, there are good points in all of them that we can all learn from. During the recess, we got the budget comparator from the finance team, which shows the differences between the different budgets. I've used the information from the officer's budget comparator to generate my own budget comparator. The independent group budget rejects more pressures than any other group by quite a margin. Two groups don't reject any pressures. The Conservatives reject 600,000. The independent group rejects 7 million. We have more rejected cuts. We have more additional savings. We have more additional spending. We take more out of earmarked reserves, but return far more to unearmarked reserves, a total of £27 million over the 3 years. On council tax, we're the lowest, and on the council tax increase, obviously in the first year, we are the lowest. But the real issue here is that in 28-29, the administration's budget is it will have a £15.8 million structural deficit. The Conservative budget would have an £18.9 million structural deficit, and the Lib Dem budget would also have a £15.8 million structural deficit. The independent group budget would have £7,000 worth of headroom. We've closed that gap in our budget. Councillor Barrett started by talking about how irresponsible the independent and Conservative group cuts to the planning assumptions for council tax were back in the December meeting in the medium-term financial plan. But she didn't explain where they will get the 12.15% increase in council tax. When's that coming? Over and above your proposals, where is the extra 12.15% that is needed to cover the structural deficit? And if you were so concerned about the irresponsibility of the cuts that we proposed back in December, why, or that that meant that those had to be brought forward by officers, why haven't you rejected more? You've rejected 2.5 million, we've rejected 4 million. So I think we're demonstrating the responsible position. Councillor Donaldson talked about investment in the roads and how it was more than any other group, but it's actually funded on a one-off basis and it's paid for by long-term borrowing, like all of the other groups, except for the independent group budget, where we put the funding into the revenue budget on a recurring basis. Put more simply, our roads investment is forever, theirs is one-off. Councillor Allen spoke passionately about libraries and about the need to find a permanent solution to support our rural libraries. We agree, and I've got a simple solution for him. It's to support the independent budget, which restores the funding on a permanent basis rather than on a one-off basis like the other group proposals before us this afternoon. Councillor Illingworth spoke about the importance of investing in the maintenance of our assets. We agree, and that's why we chose to reject in full the property maintenance cut of more than £500,000, the only group who chose to do that. Councillor Shires did speak about the Rutherland Road and particularly about the support that improvements to it have amongst our communities. I would just like to reinforce that point and echo it by saying that it's supported specifically by the Blairgowrie Rattree Community Council, the Alyth Community Council and the Meagle and Ardla Community Council. It is a lifeline, and I would consider, I'd ask the Leader of the Administration to consider proposals on that in more detail during the course of the year. Councillor Lang was absolutely correct to highlight concern over the removal of his concern over the removal of £2 million from the capital fund. His concerns are exactly why we rejected it. In order to maintain the capital programme, the funding for the capital programme over the long term. I thank him for pointing out that today's wacky, out there, independent group ideas are tomorrow's mainstream common sense ideas from officers and other groups. I don't put this budget forward in any anticipation that it's going to get passed today. We all know how the arithmetic will work out in a few minutes' time, but there are ideas here which can be taken forward, which are useful, and which we invite other groups to get on board with in future budgets. Provost, I commend our budget to the Chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. Bailey McLaren next, please sum up.
Thank you. I'm just going to be brief. There's no point in dragging it all out. You know, there's been a lot of very interesting comments. Yes, I totally agree. Not all good ideas have come from all of us. And we are all here to work for the residents of Perth and Kinross and the communities. And we are trying our best within the financial settlement that we have received from the Scottish Government. And as I said earlier, it is a constrained settlement. So I have heard, you know, Councillor James and some other Conservatives highlighting the visitor management need. I totally agree with you. We have funds in our budget for that. Unfortunately, not to the level we would have liked to have done so, but we are recognising that. I'm grateful for the conversations that happened over the recess with the SNP. We had a lot of alignments within our budgets. So I'm grateful for the recognition of all of that. And I think I'll just finish off and just say thank you, and I commend the Liberal Democrat budget to the Chamber. And let's move forward.
Thank you very much, Bailey McLaren. Councillor John Duff next, please.
Thank you, Prophet. I'll try and keep my comments minimal. Our budget highlights the severe underfunding of councils by the Scottish Government, with only a 1.3% real increase in uncommitted funding this year. Despite rising costs, especially the unfunded £10 million increase in social care pressures, this proposal delivers a balanced response through targeted investments based on a 6.95% council tax increase. This contrasts with the tax and spend budgets of the SNP and the Lib Dems. Despite the massive additional spend in recess of over £800,000, the minimal support for visitor rangers will be an absolute disaster for our rural communities. The impact of visitors, and in particular the so-called dirty campers, on these communities is made more manageable by a strong and active visitor ranger service. The administration's choices for their £800,000 of additional spend in recess ignored the needs of our rural communities, and I'm sure it will not go unnoticed. I commend the Scottish Conservative budget to the Chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Provost, and thank you to everyone for your contributions today. As others have said, it's been an excellent and a good-tempered debate, and I'm delighted about that. As I've already said, whilst the SNP administration has many good ideas, a lot of which have been referenced in speeches this morning, moving and seconding the motion, we don't have a monopoly on these, absolutely not, and we have therefore incorporated a number of suggestions brought to us by other groups and individual councillors. We have also paid, and this hasn't been mentioned too much in the chamber, but we at this end of the room have also paid very careful attention to the feedback from the budget consultation survey. As I said earlier, and also to the press yesterday, I did read the opinions expressed by hundreds of members of the public, and these have absolutely helped shape this administration's budget proposals. I've got a number of comments just about individual contributions, and I kind of scribbled all over the place here, but I'll try and follow my own notes as much as I can. I won't in any way add to the points I made earlier in my point of clarification. So these are additional points. And what I would say is, firstly to Councillor Lang, absolutely we will use the vehicle of Finance and Resources Committee as necessary to seek to augment welfare funding in year, should that be required. This is absolutely our top priority as an administration, is the protection of the most vulnerable in our society, and we will do all that we need to do and that we can to support that work. I would also say to Bailey and associating Councillor Lang's subsequent remarks as well. As is ever the case, Councillor Lang is spot on with his attention to detail, and when he's quoted the stats around the quality of our roads in Perth and Kinross, the road condition index is deteriorating, which is a matter of significant concern to the administration, and even the level of investment, the record level of investment that we are announcing today will not be enough to sort all of the problems, nowhere near it, but we're making strides in that direction with the level of investment that we have announced today. I won't reiterate the points made by Councillor Waters in relation to bus shelters, etc., other than to reaffirm that it's absolutely on our radar that a number of shelters need improved or replaced, including the one in Rattray, and insofar as this is possible, my hope would be that this would be covered from existing government funding sources. Councillor Robertson and out with this meeting, Councillor Cuthbert has reflected local members and local residents' concerns about planned new traffic management on the A922, a junction near the Kinross campus. And I can confirm that, indeed, as we do with any new traffic management measures, the performance will be monitored once it is introduced. And if it transpires that the concerns are clearly well-founded, steps will be taken to consider any other options that might become necessary at that point in time, and you have my assurance on that. One of the really good ideas today that being completely honest didn't come into our consideration because it just it's an oversight on our part, the care and attention that is required to war memorials, and both the Conservative group and Councillor Chan separately have made clear that this is a priority, and we fully accept that, which is why we have incorporated the funding as outlined earlier within our budget motion. Councillor Allen referenced rural libraries as a social hub and concluded in his remarks that let's let the current review take its course. It's coming forward in 3 months' time, and when we have all of the relevant evidence before us, I believe it is the time to make decisions about the future of library service provision across our communities. But let me be crystal clear. This is an absolute priority for this administration, and as far as I am concerned, while I'm the leader, library services will continue where they are, and we will try to improve the efficiency of the services that we deliver, but they will remain. Moving on, there have been a couple of contributions about feasibility work around mobility hubs, and again, both within and out with the formal discussions in this chamber today. And I can confirm to the independent group that their proposal to include a potential mobility hub at Ballinluig, Stanley and Bertha Park is absolutely included within our the remit of the feasibility work that we're taking forward. The councillors James and Forbes, and indeed others, the comments made about visitor rangers. The first point that needs to be made is that we do already fund visitor rangers. It's within our wider civil contingencies team. We are adding 2 new rangers as part of incorporating the Liberal Democrat proposal. And indeed, we've heard throughout the day about the scarcity of funds available to this local authority, but should the visitor levy be approved in June, that will of course yield many millions of pounds additional funding, which will which may well be considered to be applied in that direction. And finally, I do have sympathy and a degree of agreement with Councillor James regarding the nature of cross-party talks earlier today, which the first time I've been so closely involved in them, and I found the process really frustrating, and we need to find ways to improve that. And if that involves dialogue cross-party much earlier in the process, then I'm absolutely up for that. I'm delighted to confirm support for the SNP administration motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leader. That concludes the revenue budget debate. We now move to the vote.
Thank you, Provost. We are on item 3, strategic planning and transformation update, and 2026-27 to 2028-29 general fund revenue update. Report by Chief Finance Officer. We have a motion by Councillors Drysdale and Massey, headed up the Scottish National Party, that includes the revisions that were circulated to you following the recess. The first amendment by Councillors Duff and Smith, headed up Conservative Group. We have the second amendment by Bailey McLaren and Councillor Watt, headed up Liberal Democrat Group. And we have the third amendment by Councillor Colin Stewart and Bailey Brock, headed up Independent Group. Each amendment will be put against each other until we are left with one amendment against the motion. Firstly, can you please let me know if you're voting for the second amendment by Bailey McLaren or the third amendment by Councillor Stewart? Bailey Ahern.
Abstain.
Councillor Allen.
Abstain.
Councillor Anderson.
Abstain.
Can you repeat that? Sorry, Councillor Anderson.
Abstain.
Bailey.
Third amendment.
Councillor Liz Barrett.
Second amendment.
Councillor Peter Barrett.
Second amendment.
Councillor Braun.
Abstain.
Bailey Brock.
Third amendment.
Councillor Carr.
Abstain.
Councillor Chan.
Abstain.
Councillor Cuthbert.
Third amendment.
Councillor Donaldson.
Abstain.
Councillor Drysdale.
Abstain.
Councillor Duff.
Abstain.
Councillor Forbes,
Abstain.
Councillor Frampton,
Abstain.
Councillor Freshwater,
Abstain.
Councillor Harvey,
Abstain.
Councillor Illingworth,
Abstain.
Councillor James,
Abstain.
Councillor Kigali,
Abstain. Abstain. Abstain.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Third amendment.
Abstain.
sorry, Bailey McLaren,
Second.
Deputy Provost Barrett,
Abstain.
Councillor Revitt,
Abstain.
Councillor Robertson,
Second Amendment.
Councillor Shires,
Abstain.
Councillor Smith,
Abstain.
Councillor Colin Stewart,
Third Amendment.
and Councillor Grant Stewart,
Abstain.
Councillor Watt,
Second.
Councillor Waters,
Abstain.
Councillor Welch,
Abstain.
and Bailey Williams.
Abstain.
We have 5 votes for the Second Amendment and 5 votes for the Third Amendment and 30 abstentions. Thank you. And Provost, you now have the cast and vote.
Third amendment.
Thank you. So we now have the First Amendment from Councillor Duff and the Second Amendment from Councillor Colin Stewart. Bailey Ahern,
First Amendment.
Councillor Allen,
First Amendment.
Councillor Anderson,
First Amendment.
Bailey,
Second Amendment.
Councillor Liz Barrett,
Abstain.
Councillor Peterbeck,
Abstain.
Councillor Braun,
First Amendment.
Councillor Brock,
Second Amendment.
Councillor Carr,
Abstain.
Councillor Chan,
First Amendment.
Councillor Cuthbert,
Second Amendment.
Councillor Donaldson,
Abstain.
Councillor Drysdale,
Abstain.
Councillor Duff,
First Amendment.
First Amendment.
Abstain.
I can't hear, but I think it's me next. First Amendment.
sorry, thank you, Councillor Freshwater. First Amendment,
Correct, thank you.
Councillor Harvey,
Abstain.
Councillor Illingworth,
First Amendment.
Councillor James,
First Amendment.
Councillor Kigali,
First Amendment.
Councillor Lane,
Abstain.
Councillor McPherson,
Abstain.
Councillor Mayor,
Abstain.
Councillor Massey,
Abstain.
Councillor McCall,
Abstain.
Provost McDade,
Second amendment.
Councillor McEwen,
Abstain.
Bailey McLaren,
Abstain.
Deputy Provost Parrott,
Abstain.
Councillor Rebick,
Abstain.
Councillor Robertson,
Abstain.
Councillor Shires,
First Amendment.
Councillor Smith,
First Amendment.
Councillor Colin Stewart,
Second Amendment.
Councillor Grant Stewart,
Abstain.
Councillor Watt,
Abstain.
Councillor Waters,
Abstain.
Councillor Welch,
Abstain.
and Bailey Williamson.
Abstain.
Thank you. We have 13 votes for the First Amendment, 5 votes for the Second Amendment, and 22 abstentions. The First Amendment therefore carries. So for our final vote, can you please let me know if you're voting for the motion by Councillor Drysdale or the amendment by Councillor Duff? Bailey Ahern,
Amendment.
Councillor Allen,
Amendment.
Councillor Anderson,
Amendment.
Bailey,
Abstain.
Councillor Liz Barrett,
Motion.
Councillor Peter Barrett,
Motion.
Councillor Braun,
Amendment.
Bailey Brock,
Abstain.
Councillor Carr,
Motion.
Councillor Chan,
Amendment.
Councillor Cuthbert,
Abstain.
Councillor Donaldson,
Motion.
Councillor Drysdale,
Motion.
Councillor Duff,
Amendment.
Councillor Forbes,
Amendment.
Councillor Frampton,
Motion.
Councillor Freshwater,
Amendment.
Councillor Harvey,
Motion.
Councillor Illingworth,
Amendment.
Councillor James,
Amendment.
Councillor Kigali,
Amendment.
Councillor Ling,
Motion.
Councillor McPherson,
Motion.
Councillor Mayer,
Motion.
Councillor Massey,
Motion.
Councillor McCall,
Motion.
Provost McDade,
Abstain.
Councillor McEwen,
Motion.
Bailey McLaren,
Motion.
Deputy Provost Parrott,
Motion.
Councillor Rebick,
Motion.
Councillor Robertson,
Motion.
Councillor Shires,
Amendment.
Councillor Smith,
Amendment.
Councillor Colin Stewart,
Abstain.
Councillor Grant Stewart,
Motion.
Councillor Watt,
Motion.
Councillor Waters,
Motion.
Councillor Welch,
Motion.
and Bailey Williamson.
Motion.
Thank you. We have 22 votes for the motion, 13 votes for the amendment, and 5 abstentions. The motion therefore carries.
Thank you very much. Members will now have a 10-minute recess before consideration of the next item. Good afternoon, members. We now move on to item 5, which is the Strategic Investment and Composite Capital Budget Update 2026-27 to 2031-32. I'm going to ask Mr. Scott Walker, the Strategic Lead for Finance and Business Support, to introduce the report. Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Provost. This report sets out the strategic context for capital planning, provides an update on the development of the Council's asset management plans, and presents a proposed composite capital budget for the next 6 years. It also provides an update on the Perth Eco Innovation Park and outlines several adjustments to the existing programme. Before I turn to the report, I'd like to again record my personal thanks to all the officers across the Council that have contributed to this report. In particular, I'd like to thank John Jennings, James Salisbury and Gregor Walker. The wider operating context continues to be influenced by construction inflation, supply chain measures, interest rate conditions, national policy developments and statutory requirements across building safety, digital infrastructure and climate obligations. These factors affect the timing, cost and deliverability of projects and must be reflected in the Council's long-term planning. Through the development of a 30-year asset management plans across all major asset streams, the Council now has a clearer understanding of the long-term life cycle investment requirements. £3.449 billion total life cycle investment is the requirement over 30 years, which includes £2.140 billion for the property estate across 979 sites, £823 million for roads infrastructure across 1,550 miles of carriageway, £254 million for ICT on our 28,284 items of hardware and corporate software, £109 million on 2,599 pieces of fleet and mechanical equipment, and £123 million for our 1,649 community green space sites. The condition data, which is included in Table 2 on page 197, shows a mixed picture. The carriageway condition reduced from 67.6% to 65.5%. Footway condition improved to 89.75%. Street lighting within expected life increased from 72.1% to 78.42%, and play parks within expected service life reduced from 65% to 58%. The risk assessment that's set out in Table 3 identifies structures as the highest risk category, maintaining an inherent risk score of 25. Carriageways and traffic signals also show higher risks and signs of deterioration. The report also updates members on the Perth Eco Innovation Park at Perth West. Planning permission in principle has been secured and preparatory work continues. Phase 1 has the potential to support around 500 high-value jobs, unlock serviced employment land and enable development of up to 1,500 new homes. Council is asked today to approve £1.5 million from the existing budget to progress detailed design under Gateway 1. The report also recommends adjustments to the current programme through to 3031, including updates to grant assumptions, developer contributions and a rephasing of budgets. Turning to 3132, total estimated new capital resources are £45.1 million, comprising £29.5 million of new borrowing, £13 million of general capital grant, £600,000 for ring-fence active travel grant, and £2 million of developer contributions. Across the 6-year period, the composite capital programme totals £491.827 million. Looking ahead, there are several long-term challenges that may impact on the Council, and these include demographic change and pressures on social care, housing and community facilities, net zero and climate resilience requirements, regulatory developments that may introduce new statutory investment needs, an ageing estate and rising maintenance needs, construction market volatility affecting affordability, and a need to align long-term life cycle requirements with available borrowing and grant funding. There are also several financial risks that need to be articulated, including volatility in construction inflation, affecting affordability, uncertainty over national grant allocations beyond 26-27, variability in developer contributions, which depend on local housing developments, interest rate movements impacting borrowing affordability, and delivery risks that may require further rephasing of expenditure. Provost, the report provides members with a full assessment of the capital position, the resources available, and the decisions required to maintain an affordable and sustainable programme. Again, officers are happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Walker. First question, Councillor Forbes.
Thank you, Provost. Scott, on page 239, there's a line that says play areas improvements implementation strategy. Can you explain what that is? I have no idea. Thank you.
Is there any colleagues on the call? John Jennings, could answer that question.
It's an annual programme to upgrade play parks. The money would be drawn down to specific schemes as community green space progress them, but it's not allocated to any individual scheme at this stage.
I'm afraid I couldn't understand that because the signal was breaking up a little bit.
Okay, I'll try again. It's an annual allocation that community green space would draw down to new schemes as they are progressed, but at this stage it's not allocated to any specific scheme.
That's great. That was clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bailey, next question.
Thank you. My question is about something I'm seeing in the marketing brochure for the Perth Eco Innovation Park. On page 228 of our document pack under the heading of renewable energy, it's indicated that subject to planning, the Perth Eco Innovation Park can facilitate, amongst other things, battery energy storage systems and solar schemes. That concerns me somewhat because obviously if any or all of this land were to be taken up with a battery energy storage system or a solar scheme, that would be a very low employment usage that wouldn't bring the level of skilled jobs that I think we're forecasting. Can we have any reassurance about whether this actually means to say research about those schemes rather than just solar and battery energy storage sitting there without generating the local jobs that I think we all anticipate? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Billy. I can confirm that the on-site, effectively, what we will have in terms of powering the park will be through a classic, if you want, substation connecting to the electricity grid. However, as time is going on, we will explore link to local renewable energy generation. They're not necessarily on-site, so they will not necessarily take land on the park, but they may link to land which are adjacent to the park or a bit further from the park. But so I can confirm that the footprint of these battery storage or solar farm will not be on the park.
That's reassuring to know, but specifically, would we be encouraging planning applications for battery energy storage and solar within the park itself?
No, that's not the intention.
Thank you. Councillor Liz Barrett next, please.
Thank you, Provost. And my question's about the Eco Innovation Park as well. On paragraph 610 on page 200, it refers to the plans for the enabling infrastructure being progressed. The Eco Innovation Park is in Ward 9, but the underpass goes into Tweed Place, which is in my ward of Ward 10. So I'd like to ask two things. One is that the plans please include every effort to mitigate the impacts on residents around that area. That's especially off Lamberkin Drive, Tweed Place and Hill End Road due to traffic and noise and dust. And also that given the impact on our residents, please could the proposed plans be shared with the elected members for Ward 10 as well as Ward 9? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Bartlett. Yes, I can confirm that the red line effectively is including Tweed Place. So effectively the impact on local residents will be taken into account when developing the plan. And we're happy to share the plan with elected members impacting by the project.
Bailey Hearn next, please.
Thank you very much. My question is for Scott. It's with regards to construction inflation and contracts that are likely to be signed within the next 6 to 12 months. Given what's happening in the Middle East at the moment, costs for petroleum-based products and for items being shipped further afield now as they can't come through the Straits of Hormuz or the Red Sea, prices are going to superficially be inflated until there's a solution. Are we taking that into account, and are we going to look at construction contracts that we've got or coming up and take that into account in terms of falling back again once we're back to a normal environment in the Middle East?
So we'll be working with our colleagues in property to understand what the market's doing, looking at tender prices, but we will be looking to, I guess, sign the contracts at the optimum time so that we're not signing at the peak, and hopefully we can manage programmes and workloads that the prices will be on the way back down, because hopefully it's a temporary blip. So we will be keeping that under review. It also has implications on the revenue budget as well, again, which we'll need to keep under review. So it's a bit of a watching brief in terms of additional costs potentially to the council.
Thank you. Councillor Lane next, please.
Thanks, Provost. A question for Scott again. Scott, it's about the funding of the capital budget moving forward. If we're now taking through good management, accountancy, etc., 2 million recurring to fund stuff within the revenue budget mainly. If management accountancy becomes more difficult because of the volatility of interest rates, etc., over short borrowing times, and then say another council at some other time in 3 years' time decides to take 4 million out recurring to fund the revenue budget, where are we going to be left with the capital budget, with what we've agreed today, and what dangers are to doing this at times when we need to get more money for the revenue account? We can't continue to do this, surely. So basically, it's what's today's effects of today's decision to the length of the capital budget and how we can sustain the capital budget as is, and the dangers of replicating this as we move forward.
So I hope that in the elected member briefing note that we provided in terms of that proposal, we demonstrated that the capital fund is sustainable right through to the 2079, 2080s. There is no opportunity to go further in terms of that right now, because we're down, I think, the tens of millions of pounds in the capital fund in the mid-30s. But beyond that, there may be opportunities depending upon capital spend, depending on interest rates. If interest rates go up, we will continue with our strategy about borrowing short-term money. We will not enter into any long-term borrowing deals until the rates are where we need them to be. And that's a strategy that's allowed us actually to bring this proposal forward for the benefit of the revenue budget to date.
So no effect, really?
No, I'm hoping that the graphic that we provide in the briefing note demonstrate that to elected members.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cuthbert.
Thank you, Provost. My question relates to long-term debt, short-term debt, and so on. I think back in December we were quoted 45,000 per £1 million was the cost of borrowing. We were told today it was £43,000. And looking at how that's been achieved, it's been through a restructuring of the debt. Looking at that, it would appear to me that we've closed £50.5 million worth of long-term debt and taken on £50.5 million of short-term debt. And what concerns me with that is that we're accumulating short-term debt. And of course, short-term debt, by definition, is for a short period. Should interest rates go up or down in that period, you could end up with a lot more cost than we have currently. And I'm also concerned about the repayment of the capital, because I believe in some of those long-term debt, there was capital being repaid. Are we just moving the capital repayment down and down the road for our future generations to pay?
So this is an incredibly technical area, and we have offered to meet up with any elected members interested in this particular topic to take you through it. And again, that offer still stands. We've got a strategy right now of borrowing short because that's where the cheaper money is. The long-term money that gets you the certainty is too expensive and is out with our borrowing calculations, our borrowing assumptions. John, do you want to come in here in terms of some of the technical detail?
Yeah, I would just add to that the differential between the long-term rates and short-term rates are quite significant, and even if short-term rates went up slightly, they'd be well below where the long-term rates are at the moment. So it still offers best value to do the short-term borrowing. In terms of the capital repayments, it is a very technical area, but in terms of the debt we're incurring, we are repaying capital throughout the period, and there's no pause in that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lane.
Yeah, thanks. I'll definitely take you up on the offer. It could be a long session or two for me to understand it. We made a commitment, elected members did, and we voted through the last time to take 1% of council tax and allocate it to the paying off capital debt. And then we added an extra 1.25% to do that. Does this mean we could reverse one of these proposals that we put in last year, or that moving forward, or is the capital debt only sustainable if we continue with the 1.25%?
We would need to do some modelling, but I'm pretty confident that if you took out the 1.25% of the capital budget, we'd become unsustainable pretty quickly. If I can again refer you back to the note we provided, the deficit on the capital fund was pretty significant pretty quickly without the 1.25%. And again, we could do the modelling at the session that I've just described to show you how important the 1.25% is.
I think that'd be really helpful to show us, because politically it looks a bit of a difficulty for me to ask for 1.25% council tax to go towards the capital budget, and then we're told the capital budget's okay and we can take money out of the capital budget. So I'll look forward to getting a discussion on that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Collins, you're next.
Thanks. It's on page 240, and this is about the Perth Transport Futures Phase 4, Perth City improvements. And I just wondered, next financial year, we're planning to spend 3.6 million, and I wondered what a flavour of those I wondered what a flavour of those expenditures was.
Thank you for your question. I don't have the exact details for this 3.1 million, but I know that there was some of it was linked to the Dunkeld road corridor in terms of, because we are progressing some of the design, and some obviously could be reallocated to some other city improvement measures. So I can provide more details if you want, after the meeting.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any further questions, so thank you, Mr. Walker. We will now invite the Leader of the Council to move the report.
Thank you, Provost. Provost Bailey's councillors, I'm pleased to present the administration's capital budget for 2026-27 to 2031-32. A programme that supports our long-term ambitions, strengthens the foundations of our services, and helps ensure Perth and Kinross is ready for the future. As the report sets out, capital funding remains challenging across the country. Construction costs are still rising and councils are facing more statutory responsibilities every year. But our communities still need safe roads, modern schools, reliable digital connections, accessible public spaces and buildings that meet today's standards. This budget keeps us on track. It supports a planned and steady programme of investment while still responding to the new pressures and needs that come up across our estate. Without that ongoing investment, the risks grow, the costs rise, and the problems are simply pushed on to future councils and residents. That's why we continue to take a disciplined approach, making sure we spend where it matters most and where it makes the biggest difference. The report highlights the importance of making decisions based on risk. Structures, roads and pavements are key areas where deterioration can quickly become more serious and more expensive. It is no accident, therefore, that this budget strengthens funding in this area, including the additional £15 million which we've provided for in the revenue budget already agreed this afternoon. I'm especially pleased to see progress on the Perth Eco Innovation Park at Perth West. This is a major economic opportunity for our area. It will bring new employment land, strategic infrastructure and space for innovation. Phase 1 alone is expected to support high-value, clean growth jobs and create capacity for around 1,000 new homes, including 25% affordable housing. This administration believes local economic growth must be intentional, and this project is a strong example of investment that supports long-term prosperity and sustainability. Looking ahead to the final year of this 6-year plan, the Council will have £45.1 million of new resources available in 2031-32, with a £29.5 million long-term, with £29.5 million from long-term borrowing, supported by our approach of allocating 1.25% of council tax to loan charges. These resources will allow us to protect the core programmes that keep our area safe and functioning, from maintaining roads and play areas to looking after our schools and other buildings. These may not be the most eye-catching projects, but they are essential. They keep our communities moving, our buildings safe and our services running every day. We're also updating our ICT and digital allocations, recognising both the need for additional licensing capacity and the opportunity to streamline systems as we adopt new technologies. As signalled in the revenue budget, we are continuing the Adapt Your Property scheme with £750,000 over 2 years. The scheme has helped unlock stalled buildings, support regeneration and bring life into our town centres. In the projects supported this year, Adapt Your Property funding has helped to bring almost 6,000 square metres of disused floor space back into productive use, creating over 150 jobs in the development phase and over 100 full-time jobs in the new uses for the buildings. For what's a relatively small investment in capital terms, it delivers a high impact and attracts private investment, with this year's projects having brought in over £2 million in additional private sector investment to the area, exactly the kind of partnership working our economic strategy is built on. Overall, this is a capital programme that balances ambition with affordability. It responds to the changing needs of our communities, supports economic growth, and looks after the assets that make everyday services possible. It's shaped by evidence, backed by responsible financial planning, and aligned to our vision of a Perth and Kinross where everyone can live life well. Provost, I move the capital budget for 26-27 to 21 to 31-32. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Councillor Donaldson, second, please.
Thank you, Provost. First of all, I'd like to thank, and I didn't on the revenue budget, but thank Scott Walker and also John Jennings, James Salisbury and Treasury Management, and Gregor Walker as an asset management officer. And this is an important report. I certainly second it and also approve the proposals for further development on Perth Eco Innovation Park. I think our Treasury team has done, really, from all I can see over the years, a fantastic job. I worked for many years in investment management, It's much more equities rather than bonds and fixed interest. But I do know, and given some of the earlier questions, it can be a highly technical area. And trying to explain, the maturity of debt portfolios, with term interest rates and how that works, it can be a highly complex aspect. But I think the key thing is that we do rely on the very good professional judgment of our finance team, and they themselves receive sound advice, I believe, from external sources, in particular from Link, although I think the name has changed there, and Capital Economics. What I would say is, and also we have constantly kept members up to date on the capital position. We partly reflected that in the Treasury annual report last Wednesday. There's also at Finance and Resources every 2 to 3 months. There is a fairly detailed and comprehensive report on the capital position, but I would refer members to one aspect of that report is Appendix 4, and on one page you get a significant capital projects progress update. I think it's a very helpful document. That it's kind of a synopsis of all the various projects, things like the Comrie Flood Protection Scheme, and where it now looks as if we should have that completed by October of this year. Bertha Park Link Road and Perth High School, on Blairgowrie Rec. And I know Councillor McEwen has pushed so much on that since we came in administration in 2022. We've heard today on Kinross, on the sports facilities there, and that's being accelerated and to commence in 2027, and in Crieff, where that will commence the sports leisure centre there in 2028. So I think we are making good progress, but obviously, I think that appendixes will have to be updated. We also had earlier, in the revenue budget, we put forward proposals for the ICE and study of ICE feasibility. But one of the aspects here may yet be on the 17th of June. It may not be. It depends on Council's decision on what happens with the visitor levy scheme. And remember, that scheme is not just got potential in terms of revenue funding, it's also got the possibilities in terms of capital funding going forward. There's a lot we're going to have to look at with the new legislation, how we do it, and we've got to do it properly. But that does offer possibilities. But let us see. But I certainly, for the moment, do support very much this update. And on the Eco Innovation Park, clearly, I think the hope is for the main construction to be completed in September 2028. But that's going to have to, first of all, go to the Economy and Infrastructure Committee. I think that's next month for the actual master plan to be looked at. But we are making progress. I am positive on what we're aiming to do, and I think we're doing it on a sound and prudent basis. So I second what's been put forward.
Thank you, Councillor Donaldson. Councillor Constewart with an amendment.
I need to move that close to my mouth. Thank you, Provost. Thanks very much, Mr. Walker, for the report and your introduction. I have a relatively straightforward amendment in 4 parts. The first part is to request officers to bring forward proposals for the provision of ICE facilities in Perth. The second part, and I'll talk more about that. The second part is to provide capital funding to take forward the West Kinfauns Walnut Grove Park and Chews, and my seconder, Bailey Bailey, will speak about that part. The third part is to establish a new asset management programme for 3G community sports pitch funding with an investment of £5 million. And then the last part is to provide £1 million additional funding towards structural maintenance, specifically the Muirs Lathangi Road in Kinross. I don't intend to spend a long time talking about that last point, but the ward members, I understand, are all in agreement urged by their community that this investment is required. So I would invite any of the 4 ward members to address that particular point. So returning to the main theme here, which is ice. I think there's a myth abroad that curling and ice sports provision is an add-on, a nice to have. Curling is indulged in by the wealthy farming community, that it's not that these things are not mass participation sports. But I think that's a myth. 40% of Scotland's national young competitive curlers are from Perth and Kinross. But within Perth and Kinross, 95% of young people taking part in curling attend state schools, well in excess of the general school population, either in Perth and Kinross or across Scotland. Curling, where it is a broad participation sport, is also a low impact sport. We've heard about our ageing and increasingly frail population in terms of the pressures on the adult social care budget earlier this morning. So low impact sports where you can get broad participation are exactly the sort of thing that we should be encouraging. But it's certainly not an unathletic sport when you consider the competitive aspect when you get to national or international competition. Now we have heard warm words about a feasibility study for a community-led ice provision. It's worth, I think, emphasising that the Dewars facility originally was a community-led ice provision, which is now sitting under Live Active Leisure. But I fear that just doing a feasibility study will put a decision on replacing or refurbishing ice facilities in Perth. It will just push that decision further down the road. We have debated this endlessly in previous meetings. We are in a position today to commit a maximum, a budget instruction and ask officers to bring back an options paper within a couple of months. And let's provide certainty, let's provide vision, and let's provide ambition for Perth and Kinross. And I commend this amendment to the Chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. Bailey to second.
Thank you, Provost. I'll speak briefly as we're approaching 5 p.m. Very happy to support and to second this amendment. People in the Castle Gallery and the many commuters from the Dundee direction who come to Perth and who want to travel beyond will greatly benefit from a park and choose at the very top of the M90 at West Kinfauns. Not only would existing local services serve this, but the Ember buses that are currently very popular have to use a very substandard stop on the interchange itself, so those users would benefit. It would encourage more usage of the Ember bus. This has been discussed and included in our plans since before I was elected in 2017. So I'm of the feeling it's time to get on, allocate a budget and get building. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you, Bailey. Point of clarification, Councillor Forbes.
Yeah, thank you, Provost. Just a bit of clarity from the mover of the motion. This is the first I've seen of it, but obviously welcome the proposal which relates to my ward. But given that that's kind of inextricably linked to the Morris Leslie group, I wonder what discussions have taken place with representatives of Morris Leslie.
Perhaps the seconder might be able to answer that.
The situation there is that we're able to build that separately if we wish to, or that would be one option that could be explored, Councillor Forbes.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any comments, but I have a request for a recess. Oh, I do have a comment. I'll go to recess first, I think, if there's a request for a recess, and then we'll come back for comments. So is 5 minutes enough for you, Councillor Duff? 5 minutes. So back at 10.2. Good afternoon, members. We're back on item 5. I have a point of clarification from the Leader of the Council, and then I have some comments. Point of clarification, Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Provost, and thank you to the movers of the amendment for sharing, just actually in the last few seconds, sharing the details of that online so that we could have a look at it. I wonder if I can ask officers for clarification, please. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon, but I wonder if I can ask the mover of the amendment for clarification as to whether it is the intention that any proposed that the site at Thimble Row be considered for as an option in relation to item 1 on the amendment.
Councillor Stewart.
Thanks, Provost. Thanks for the point of clarification or the request for a point of clarification. When we drew up the amendment, we had specifically looked at a number of different options. Thimble Row was one of them, but I think that would be for the Strategic Investment Advisory Group maybe to decide on. We have a price for Thimble Row. It is a possible option, but it is not necessarily the only option or the best option. That is what asking the officers to bring back a strategic business case would encompass all of those things, and then submit it to the Strategic Investment Advisory Group and give them their place in terms of making a recommendation.
Thank you for that answer. I wonder if I can therefore further ask officers for clarification of the financial implications should Thimble Row be considered.
Thank you, Provost. I think at this point in time we can't tell you what the full financial implications are. The council is entirely free to make a decision on change a previous decision, but we have a decision of council that was made which did consider the possibility of ice at Thimble Row, and because of the financial cost, both capital and revenue, chose not to proceed with Thimble Row. If council is minded to ask officers to pause the development at Thimble Row, there will be the potential that we will lose the costs which have been incurred to date, and there would be the high likelihood of a further delay to this project, which has been a number of years in the establishing, because we'd have to do further design work and go through a further and a new planning process when we get to that point in time. So there would be a delay and additional costs over and above what has been spent to date, but I don't have that detail. We could provide that after the meeting.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Cuthbert with first comment.
Thank you, Provost. I was just going to give a bit more clarity on the roundabout we're talking about at the Mews Lathangi Road in Kinross. This junction is the one that has the campus on it. Basically, it's become an incredibly busy road because there's been a lot of development in North Kinross and also in Milnathorpe. I think something like 6,000 plus vehicles a day use this route. There's also, it's a relief road for the motorway, so when the motorway gets shut for any reason, then the traffic gets diverted along this road. Currently, there are traffic lights being installed as planning gain under the housing development put forward by a developer in North Kinross. The residents locally were not consulted. The community councils have not been consulted. Local members were not consulted, and the overwhelming opinion locally is it should be a roundabout. There's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, the traffic lights. We've got temporary traffic lights there at the moment. I spent 10 minutes trying to get to a meeting in the campus last night, waiting at the traffic lights. They're not required apart from 2 peak periods in the day, and that is when the Kinross High School goes in and when it comes out. Apart from that, the traffic currently flows really quite smoothly. And the general opinion is that if you have a roundabout there, it won't interrupt the traffic through the day, And if the motorway is closed, then it will flow quite easily through a roundabout. Whereas if you've got traffic lights, unless someone comes down and changes the timing on them, you will get vehicles backed all the way back. And during last summer, we had SGN were doing works on the Muirs. The traffic lights there caused chaos when the motorway was closed, and there were vehicles actually backing up almost onto the motorway. So there's a real dread in Kinross of having these traffic lights put in place, and this is about putting in a roundabout that I don't think it'll cost £1 million, but we haven't got a clear quote, so we put the highest level we could in for this. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Cuthbert. Got a point of clarification, Councillor Colin Stewart.
Thanks, Provost. It was just maybe to further clarify the Chief Executive's comment. The cost that we've been given for Thimble Row is now nearly half what was given to us 18 months ago. Officers have told us it's about 11.6 million, significantly down from the 20 million that we were that was quoted in September 2024. That's a recent figure, and the costs expended so far on I'm being told that the figure that I've been given is complete nonsense. I was given that figure by officers of the council 3 weeks ago, and the cost of so far expended on PH2O is, I understand, under £200,000.
Okay, I've got a comment from Councillor Willie Robertson next.
Thank you, Provost. I would like to also comment on the item 4. It seems a strange thing to request a roundabout where we're currently putting in traffic lights. This has been the biggest failure in all my years as a councillor. I have to say, because it happened without me ever knowing anything about it. It was decided by Forward Transport Planning and Persimmon Homes, the developer. I was never consulted. My ward councillor colleagues were never consulted. The community council was never consulted, and neither were the people on the street who are going to be so badly affected by it. I think Councillor Cuthbert has made all the points quite clearly that it's actually not wanted. It's perhaps not even needed. It's only 2 times of the day for probably 20 minutes that junction's busy. I think it's a complete failure by perhaps the ward councillors and this council to actually listen to what people want. We never consulted at all. It was part of a planning application which didn't even include the Muirs. And it was passed by the Scottish Government reporter after being refused by our own planning committee. So it's a complete failure, and we'll have to want to put it right. So Leader of the Council said as part of his revenue budget preamble that he was prepared to put money aside to deal with this issue should it prove the problem it is. Well, as Councillor Cuthbert says, the traffic lights are now in situ, and it's causing real chaos for people at this junction. So with that in mind, I'm actually minded to vote for that part of the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Councillor Lane next, please.
Thanks, Provost. And, this will be up to you, Council. All this information coming in, I refuse to make a decision one way or another on some things that I have not a clue about. I don't know about figures. We've had figures that Councillor Stewart has had from officers, or says he has been dismissed as absolute rubbish by our other councillors. I think we have to actually cancel this today and bring it back when everybody's got full information. I know that won't be popular. It's another Wednesday out, but MD can vote for any of the either capital amendment or against the amendment or the motion without having the full facts and figures. It's not something I'll be abstaining if we go ahead like this.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Councillor Peter Barrett next.
Thanks, Provost. I think I can understand part of Councillor Laing's dilemma, but I think you've got to apply common sense in a situation like this, and it's pretty clear where common sense would take you. Colin Stewart described his revenue budget motions as being somewhat wacky and out there. I think his capital budget motions are far beyond that, and you know, I think if you think about what the implications of pausing the Thimble Row project would be, as the Chief Executive said, as the potential to delay the project substantially. We've talked already today about the high potential for construction inflation due to international situations. You know, I think that this is an underhand means of derailing the Thimble Row PH2O project. And I think if Colin and Alistair and the independent group have their way, we will never build a replacement for PH2O at Thimble Road, and we certainly won't build it anywhere else. And for that reason, I'll be voting for any motion that's for the recommendations of the report. And I think it would be grossly irresponsible and negligent for anybody in this chamber to do anything different. Thank you.
The Chief Executive made a very good point to clarify that those figures are about the addition of ice at Thimble Row. It is not the entirety of the Thimble Row project cost, obviously. Councillor, sorry, I have got a point of clarification from Councillor McCall.
Yeah, the provision of ice, is that purely for curling? That's the first thing. And I have another point of clarification about the Kinross proposal. As far as I'm aware, the traffic lights have not been activated yet, and therefore not been sequenced. So could somebody clarify that for me, please?
Councillor Stewart.
So on the first point, no, it is just general ice facilities. It's not specifically curling. It could be, again, that would be for an outline business case, a strategic business case to bring back and to be discussed by the SEAG with a recommendation to Council.
On the second point, looking at both or some of the local ward members over here to confirm, and indeed there's one sitting next to you who perhaps could confirm also, but I don't believe they have been switched on yet, have they?
I can cover it in my statement I'm going to make just now as my comment, if that helps.
That would be wonderful. We'll go to you next for your comment then.
Thank you, Provost. I think there's no question that you know, there is a junction needed here. The modelling work highlighted it. There is some truth in the fact that it is when school goes in and school comes out that it's at its most stressed. There is also on Lithangi Road, there is a proposal going forward for an aerospace centre there as a visitor attraction, and also just a little bit further along there is another the golf driving range, which is currently getting constructed just now as well, which will add a traffic to that junction. A little bit disingenuous with mentioning the time you're waiting at traffic lights. It's a three-way traffic light system just now, not normal operation traffic lights. Traffic lights are just getting installed, so hence they're not switched on yet. There's roadwork traffic lights currently there, which are a three-way system, which is not how the lights, once they're installed, will run. So I think there's, you know, there hasn't been, I think, the modelling that was done to look at traffic lights at this situation were done pre-pandemic, and I think traffic movements in Kinross has changed since then. And I think there's, you know, it's a lot of money. While I would welcome any investment in Kinross and road infrastructure, there is quite a number of places I would like to see in Kinross and Kinross Shire, where £1 million I think would go a long way as well, and possibly even a higher priority over this. Adding a roundabout here will also add yet more
disruption to the road, and Councillor Robertson and Cuthbert are right. The disruption on the Muirs, which is really just one street down that main artery road. There's no, if that's closed and there's disruption on it, there is no other options on where you can go that don't involve quite a significant detour. And they are right with that, and there seems to be just continual roadworks on that section of road, including as Councillor Cuthbert said, in putting the traffic lights in. While I accept there might be a need for a roundabout there, I think there's a need to just be a more pragmatic approach to this, in the sense that let's let the traffic lights are going to get switched on. Let's see what happens with the traffic lights to see, and if there's an adverse effect on the traffic going through there, I would have absolutely no issue with coming back and saying that, you know, we need a roundabout in this situation, and actually pushing quite hard to get it. Doing that before traffic lights are so even switched on, or before anybody knows what the implications of that would be, I just find it a little bit premature. While and you know, would be quite happy for both Councillor Cuthbert and Robertson to come back to me in a year's time and say, we told you so. But I do think, from a sensible approach to this, it would be best to let the traffic light get switched on. Let's see what's happened. Let's get a commitment of officers to monitor that junction, and if it is an adverse effect, that we do look seriously with full costings and design for a roundabout and a bit of modelling, just to check that works as well and doesn't create a negative impact. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a point of clarification first from Councillor Liz Barrett.
Yeah, I'm really confused here, because I think we just in the revenue budget provided 50,000 of support over each of the next 2 years for a feasibility study about community ice. And I can't see how we could expect officers to go and produce a strategic business case taking cognizance of the capital and revenue costs of this proposal without having the feasibility study. And I must admit, agree with my husband's suggestion that this is another effort to kick down the road the replacement of the Perth swimming pool, which we desperately need. Thank you. So my question is, how could we do this?
Councillor Stewart.
So the feasibility study is for community-led ice provision. So we would be asking officers to go out and ask the community whether it was feasible for them to build and run a facility. But we've already had a feasibility study for Dewars, for I think the refurbishment of Dewars. There are numbers there. So it's possible to come back in short order with a variety of proposals. There are a number of additional identified sites which would be possible, which might require further feasibility study money, but we've got a costed proposal for Thimble Row in addition to PH2O. There's no intention to use this to derail that. There's a feasibility study for Dewars, and there are potential other sites that are of interest to the curling community. So that's why we don't need for some certain sites we might need a feasibility study, but we've got information on others.
Okay, Billy McLaren next, please.
Yeah, thank you. So this is really frustrating that we're having this conversation. It's a conversation that's turned into a couple of issues, but it is the capital budget we're speaking about here. With regard to ice and curling, we're all in agreement that there has been little progress over this conversation. That's partly why this is here in front of us. That's been hugely frustrating. I have made efforts over the last couple of weeks to move that forward, and I believe even today that has been happening. And Councillor Drysdale opened this morning by saying he had had a conversation. I believe there's intent
and strong intent to get this moving forward. I'm not so sure how this amendment here, particularly about this ice facility, is going to help that. I have a great concern that will delay matters, and delay is not what we want. With the road issue in Kinross, you know, I've got roads that I would love to have junctions put in around here. You know, we're being a little bit too prescriptive here. So it's 5:10. This has been flung at us today. And as Councillor Lane says, you're asking a wee bit too much of us to vote this through today. So I would like to understand how we can have reasonable time to address this.
Okay. I've got a point of clarification from Willie Robertson next.
Yes, thanks, Provost. Based on what Councillor Waters has said and the commitment of the leader of the council, Councillor Drysdale, in the previous budget, I'm just seeking his assurance that if there's serious traffic issues with these damned traffic lights, that the council will respond to that as a matter of urgency to sort it out. But I'm prepared to allow them to settle in first. But I want his assurance that if there's serious problems, then the funding will be made available to sort it out and install a roundabout. Thank you.
Mr. Leader.
Thank you, Councillor. I am, as I said earlier, I fully understand the concerns of local residents and elected members about what they see as potential difficulties once these traffic lights are operational. And yes, I reaffirm the commitment that should that transpire to be the case, then this is absolutely something that will be looked into as a matter of urgency, and any remedial action that is necessary would need to be taken at that point. Hope that's sufficient.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Point of clarification, Councillor Illingworth.
Okay. Two quick questions. Could part-time signals be considered for Kinross as number one question? Is that possible?
I think that's apparently Councillor Waters says he can answer this.
There we go. On a site visit with relevant officers, the challenge with just doing the temporary lights was the road layout has to change, so the sight lines wouldn't allow it to be a junction that you could see along. So the idea of having traffic lights that were just at the peak times, we were told right at the meeting that wasn't possible because of the danger with the sight lines.
Okay, thank you.
Second question is, could this be considered at strategic policy and finance?
Sorry, do you mean that can this go to Finance and Resources Committee? It's currently being considered here, but I'm sure it may come back at other points in other committees. Point of clarification, Councillor Lane.
First of all, suggestion, can we not have a roundabout with traffic lights on it? And that would solve it as we do everywhere else, and then we can all move on. And after thinking of that, I'm struggling for my point of clarity was, who then decides if there's a problem or not? Because we'll have some people who think there is a problem and some people who think there isn't a problem. So we're to leave it open, and this is, you know, I can understand the Leader Council trying to be helpful, but you've got no parameters of what the difficulty is. If one person gets held up, I don't understand until what we're talking about here.
Can I suggest this is a matter that the new convener of Environment and Infrastructure can perhaps take up in his role?
Road safety is not in my remit.
Well, I'm sure you can work with others on that. Councillor McCall next, please. You have a comment request.
I have a comment. I just want to agree with Councillor Lane's earlier comment about being expected to be making a decision of quite substantial sums of money and without any business cases, without any real understanding of what the revenue impacts are of some of these. And, you know, I just find it quite astonishing that we're being asked to make this decision here. And I would absolutely agree that we should defer it until there's more information made available and we can make informed decisions. But I don't think presenting something like this with nothing at all to quantify or back up any of these is a competent way to move forward. Thank you.
Obviously, all items of capital investment go through the council's processes, so it would be required. Right, I've got one comment left to go, and I've also got a new amendment as well. So I'm going to come to the new amendment first, and then I'm going to come to the comment. So amendment from Councillor Lane.
My amendment is that we adjourn the meeting just now. We go away and get further information so we can make a sensible and informed decision. I wouldn't want to go on for without getting to a position that we're making a sensible one. Councillor Barrett makes a good point. Councillor Peter Barrett about I don't want to see delay to the swim pool mat. If Councillor Stewart's facts are correct, I'd like to know that as well. So my amendment is that we defer this until a suitable time, hopefully in a week or 2 weeks' time on a Wednesday.
Okay, so I think that's a procedural motion probably by the looks of it. Do you have a seconder? I have a seconder from Councillor Allen. Okay, technically as it's a procedural motion, it goes immediately to a vote. So we'll just go straight to a vote.
Provost, I have a point of clarification.
If the motion was passed, it would stop comments at that point because the item would be concluded and it would come back. Is it perhaps a point of order, Councillor Drysdale, which would take precedence?
Thank you, Provost. This singular amendment contains 4 entirely separate provisions. In what way is that competent? You know, earlier today I said that we must continue to take a disciplined approach, making sure we spend where it matters most and where it makes the biggest difference. These are 4 projects of which we have no knowledge whatsoever.
Okay, so it is competent. However, if you wish to move, if this procedural motion, for example, falls and you wish to move them to be voted on individually, that is also a procedural item that can happen, and I can just do that if that was a request. We're going to move to the vote which is requested. So you're voting for deferral or against deferral. So if you, Kirsten will explain again, but if you wish to defer the item to another day, you vote yes for or against. The Head of Legal and Governance is going to provide a clarification before we vote.
I just wanted to provide a little bit of clarification, given that we now have a procedural vote about deferring decision on the budget. It is entirely appropriate to make a decision and agree the capital budget as proposed, because there is nothing stopping any capital investment initiative or proposal being brought through the appropriate governance process at any point in the time. Part of the reason why we have the investment blueprint and the CIAG is so that where there are capital initiatives or concerns that require to be addressed and require capital funding to address that, there is a mechanism for dealing them at any point in the year. So it doesn't have to be a deferral of the budget decision. In order to give that consideration, there is an appropriate governance framework in place to give consideration to any one of those proposals at any point, at any time, through the arrangements that are already in place.
The vote that the person is about to undertake is a procedural motion moved by Councillor Lane, seconded by Councillor Allen, which is to defer the discussion of this item and the consideration of this item to a future council meeting. As outlined, as a provision under the standing orders, Councillor Lane has moved, it's been properly seconded. The standing orders also require that it is moved immediately to a vote. If that vote fails, the discussion, the debate will continue, and it will then proceed to a vote against the current motion and amendment that are before the council. Okay.
Forrest, it's still clear as mud. Are we deferring the whole capital budget or are we deferring the amendment?
It is the whole item.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Provost. Yeah, just to come.
Apologies,
I have a point of order from Councillor McCall. Okay, thank you.
Apologies, Provost. You said we're voting on the whole thing here, but I thought we were voting on whether or not to.
It is deferral of the item.
To defer the amendment.
To defer the item. It's defer the item. That is the process.
Can I request a brief recess, please?
5 minutes, 25 past. Okay, welcome back, members. We're now moving to a procedural vote. This is a procedural vote which is about deferral of the item. Kirsten will ask whether you're voting for deferral or against deferral. So it's a for against vote. Please indicate when asked.
Thank you, Provost. And also just to confirm that Councillor Freshwater has left the meeting and will not participate in the vote. Bailey Ahern.
Against.
Councillor Allen.
For.
Councillor Anderson.
Against.
Bailey.
Against.
Councillor Les Barrett.
Against.
Councillor Peter Barrett.
Against.
Councillor Braun.
Against.
Bailey Brock.
Against.
Councillor Carr.
Against.
Councillor Chan.
Against.
Councillor Cuthbert.
Against.
Councillor Donaldson.
Against.
Councillor Drysdale.
Against. Against.
Councillor Forbes.
Against.
Councillor Frampton.
Against.
Councillor Harvey.
Against.
Councillor Illingworth.
Against.
Councillor James.
Against.
Councillor Kigali.
Against.
Councillor Lane.
For.
Councillor McPherson.
Against.
Councillor Mayer.
Against.
Councillor McCall.
Against.
Provost McDade.
Against.
Councillor Massey.
Against.
Councillor McEwen.
Against.
Bailey McLaren.
Against.
Deputy Provost Parrott.
Against.
Councillor Rebeck.
Against.
Councillor Robertson.
Against.
Councillor Shires.
Against.
Councillor Smith.
Against.
Councillor Colin Stewart.
Against.
Councillor Grant Stewart.
Against.
Councillor Watt.
Against.
Councillor Waters.
Against.
Councillor Welch.
Against.
and Bailey Williamson.
Against.
We have 37 votes for against and 2 votes for, so therefore the item is not deferred.
Okay, thank you. Next, I've got a point of order from Councillor Willie Robertson, and then I'm coming to you, Bailey Ahern.
Provost, can I ask that we put this to the vote, the capital budget straight to the vote?
And I take Bailey Ahern's comment first, and then we'll go to a vote anyway, because I've got no other comments. Okay, Bailey Ahern.
Thank you very much. We seem to have got het up on Thimble Row, and it's not even mentioned in the amendment. It's asking there for a strategic business case for ICE. I think the Chief Exec gave a good reason why we shouldn't delay the Thimble Row project, and both councillors Barrett complained about delaying Thimble Row. Personally, I would like to see Thimble Row kicked into touch and something else done, but I'm not voting on that, and we're not voting on that here today. I personally agree with the amendment. I think we should look at a business case for ICE. Doesn't matter where it is. It obviously won't be at Thimble Row, but I support that, and I will be supporting the amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Forbes, I see you've put a late request in for comment. However, I did say that Bailey Ahern was going to be the last.
It's okay, Councillor, it's fine.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Collins Stewart to sum up, and then Councillor Drysdale.
Thank you, Provost. I appreciate everybody who's commented and the opportunity to give points of clarification. Just to be absolutely clear, there is no direction about any specific site in that first part of the amendment. It is about having the vision and ambition for Perth and Kinross to deliver ice sporting facilities within Perth. I don't think I want to prolong this anymore, so I'm just going to commend the motion to the Chamber again.
Thank you. Councillor Drysdale.
Thank you, Provost. I have nothing to add. I enthusiastically support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I move to a vote?
Thank you, Provost. We're on item 4, strategic investment and composite capital budget, 26-27 to 2031-32. And the report is by the Chief Finance Officer. We have a motion by Councillor Drysdale, seconded by Councillor Donaldson, to approve the recommendations in the report. We have an amendment by Councillor Collins Stewart, seconded by Bailey, which has been circulated to you. When I call out your name, can you please let me know if you're voting for the motion or the amendment? Bailey Ahern.
Amendment.
Councillor Allen.
Amendment.
Councillor Anderson.
Amendment.
Bailey.
Amendment.
Councillor Liz Barrett.
Motion.
Councillor Peter Barrett.
Motion.
Councillor Braun.
Amendment.
Bailey Brock.
Amendment.
Councillor Carr.
Motion.
Councillor. Councillor Cuthbert. Councillor Donaldson.
Motion.
Councillor Drysdale.
Motion.
Councillor Duff.
Amendment.
Councillor Forbes.
Amendment.
Councillor Frampton.
Motion.
Councillor Harvey.
Motion.
Councillor Illingworth.
Amendment.
Councillor James.
Amendment.
Councillor Kigali.
Amendment.
Councillor Lane.
Abstain.
Councillor McPherson.
Motion.
Councillor Mayor.
Motion.
Councillor Massey.
Motion.
Councillor McCall.
Motion.
Provost McDade.
Amendment.
Councillor McEwen.
Motion.
Bailey McLaren,
Motion.
Deputy Provost Parrott,
Motion.
Councillor Rebeck,
Motion.
Councillor Robertson,
Motion.
Councillor Shires,
Amendment.
Councillor Smith,
Amendment.
Councillor Colin Stewart,
Amendment.
Councillor Grant Stewart,
Motion.
Councillor Watt,
Motion.
Councillor Water,
Motion.
Councillor Welch,
Motion.
and Bailey Williamson.
Motion.
We have 21 votes for the motion, 17 votes for the amendment and 1 abstention. The motion therefore carries.
Thank you, Kirsten. We now move on to item 5, which is a valedictory for Jackie Pepper.